that was my bad. I was smart and muted myself. I had a lot of problems with Restream, and it's something I got to learn how to fix here in a bit. But yeah, so hello and welcome to the Office Hours. My name is Paul. This is a live stream where I talk about Star Citizen with the community. You can ask questions. We talk about lore. We talk about update news, all sorts of things. So should be fixed now.
Drugs.
You just saw me on Informers. I was setting up for this when I saw the Informers were live and decided to go troll them, and they're like, "Come on!" I'm like, "All right, cool. I already have everything set up, so it's not too bad." But then Restream broke, so it wasn't anything on my ways. Yes. Welcome. Before I want to get too started, I do want to show off a model, as I always do at the beginning of this stream. But I also want to make a quick announcement, which is going to sound kind of weird.
Good news, everyone.
But let me preface this by saying one of the things I've been trying to do is improve my Patreon, and I wanted to do a couple of things. One of which was a fun thing, and one of which I think is an important thing. The fun thing I'll talk about here in a moment, but the important thing is that a lot of Star Citizen content, like a lot of Star Citizen's lore, like a lot of lore in a lot of games and other IPs, has minimal visual references, since most of it is usually text-based, stories, novels, so on and so forth. So what a lot of other creators do for their various IPs is commission artists to do art of an event in the past of that game or that IP universe or whatever, that to kind of visually represent it. Sometimes there's fans who create stuff, but often people will pay money to have it created. And because I often find myself using the same content over and over again, I've decided that I'm going to take some of the money that I've been getting, because I've been getting a lot more money than I have in the past. Now, thank you, y'all, for being so generous about this, and using that to improving the quality of content, which is also I want to then pass on to the community as a whole, so the community can use it for their own means if they need to as well. So out of that came a meme. This is something that I've joked about in the community for many years, that eventually it's the rule of the internet. Someone's going to loot the ships. So I decided I might as well do it myself. Though, knowing me, I have to do it in a way that is lore-based and somewhat serious, because the only way you can make memes that work is if you take them super duper seriously. So I put far too much money and effort into this. But hey, John Crew specifically told me not to do it. And anytime John Crew tells you no, you have to do the opposite thing, because it's John Crew. This is Drake Hater 101. Like, I am Drake Man. He is John Crew. He says no, I must do. That's just how this works. So it's not all Rule 34 ships, but it's another thing that I've noticed some creators have done in the past, which is add some nice fan art as part of their own kind of thing. Very classy, usually very classy, very, very on point. I'm a 40K lore guy as well. I'm doing on my own. I've been playing a lot of 40K, which is why I show off my 40K models that I paint. But one of the shows that my wife and I listen to a lot when we're painting or just doing stuff is Adeptus Ridiculous. And they do every month, they do a kind of a poster where they have, which is this like usually very sexy, but very classy. Like there's TNA, but it's all very, very covered and very, very boudoir, if you know what I mean. A lewd, not a nude. So I decided to sort of do the same thing, but more PG-13. If you have heard of gacha games, which are games like Azure Lane, Raid Shadow Legends, gosh, what else? Girls Frontline, Arc Knights, Epic 7, a lot of the, like especially older, you should get a lot of ads for them on YouTube and such like that. So I've sort of done that. I hired some artists to turn the ships into what they would use, like a bunch of weeb artists, a bunch of artists who are, you know, do anime art, to kind of say, like, take this and turn this into an anime, the husbando, you know, waifu sort of thing. So in that process, I've already created a sort of fandom canon, which is a gacha game, a free-to-play Moby Glass game in Star Citizen. Obviously, completely fan, not made from all, like, you know, not real game, because CIG would sue the shit out of me. But something to add to the lore for something, especially for something that I think is fairly lacking. You know, they recognize that video games exist in the Star Citizen universe, but there's like 3, which is dumb. So to satisfy the weebs, I've created Quantum Stellar. I've even made a freaking logo for this. I hired Art Darge to do this for me. And there are multiple. I've already have an artist who's done 2, who's usually here, and then there's another artist who's doing 2 other ones. I'll pull them up over the course of today, but effectively, you can think of this as a gacha game in the universe of Star Citizen, where the players would collect ships as fighters. That's all it is. It's just kind of the background for it. This is serious business. So yeah, if you like that kind of thing, some nice art, very, very, very PG-13, but still very nice. Let me show off a couple of the, I gotta download them real quick because I still have them in my email. Here we go. There we go. So here's just 2 previews on 2 of them. Yeah, I live in Texas. Mustang and Aurora. I showed off Aurora last week as well, because that was kind of done. But so these are going to end up in Patreon as a Patreon exclusive for about a month, and then I'm going to release them to the rest of the community. And my plan is going forward to do at least one of these a month going forward. In fact, the person who did those 2 is already working on Reclaimer, so I've seen it before. So. And for those of you who know who are you know, men and women of culture like myself, will find this very, very appropriate, which is the artist that I'm having working on the Avenger currently. They kind of walked them through it, talked to them about it, and one of the first things they came up with was, this ship feels very aura to me. So if you know what that means, you know what it means. Do Redeemer? I will, eventually. It'll just be a trash can. It'll just be a trash can. NFTs? No NFTs. Actual physical art that you can download. Everyone can, it's free JPEGs. Oh my, I like that snark. Will the whole series be weightlifters? I'm still working with people talking about that, but I'm feeling like the whole series is family, obviously. These are there's a lot of clothes in that for hentai, y'all. So yes, that's that's that part. So that's the head up. So I'm still working with artists to do the concept art. The concept art stuff is going to be up there as well. It'll be more for more you serious folks. But those of you who enjoy me scaring John Crew, there you go. Oh, I'm also going to turn those into posters and send them to CIG's offices in Austin. So you're welcome. Can I make Chris Roberts into a waifu? First time watching you live, your content makes my week. Thank you, Derek. Purple on some canvas. I'm thinking about doing this. How long have I been live? Only about 15 minutes. As always, I got to show the latest work that I've done. I don't know if I showed this last time or not. I don't think I did. It's more see-through than normal, but you gotta get the idea. Stealth business, yes. Hey, it is a Tau battle suit. They do have cloaking tech. It was really good. I started doing this because originally I was just going to put some green on it, and then I realized, I can just finish this. And I actually finished this entire battle suit in like 2 hours, which is pretty surprising. I'd done the base already, so it was just more of a finishing up the battle suit. It turned out pretty well. I'm not a model god. I'm just an average painter. I've begun to realize that, like, I have this rule where I can't play with a model unless I've painted it. And so I've been getting better at painting as a result, but also faster at painting because, you know, if I want a model, I gotta get done. So with like this, for instance, I'm at, I've got one more of these broadsides to finish. One more of these broadsides to finish. And then, two more crisis suits and then a enforcer commander. So beautiful. I used to collect 40k Star Marines years ago, or Space Marines years ago. I just didn't keep going. Yeah, I've been doing it as a nice relaxing thing. Saber-chan. Fate X Star Citizen crossover. I didn't even think about that. That'd be a good one. Not my style, but whatever floats in. Exactly. It's not really designed as anything more than a fun little side project to do. So if people are interested in it, because I'm going to be honest, I'm in a state where like I'm making more money than I can spend. So this is one of those projects. Another project that I'm going to do is hire an editor. Because if I can hire an editor, I think an editor can help me push out a lot of content a lot faster. So, and then I'm going to keep reaching the problem where I'm going to make, I'll reach a state where I'm making more money than I can, you know, offer the editor, and just be like, what am I going to do with all this money? Never tried Warhammer or D&D, but I loved MTG. Okay. Also Reclaimer Chan. Reclaimer is what is being worked on. Yes, Fizzlefuse is the one who's working on. He's the one who did the Mustang and the Aurora. So he's working on Reclaimer. That Paul paints models that pierce the veils of even the most stoogy. It just means that I'm going to put more like design effort and editing and that sort of thing. Star System I used to watch gave away a starter packages at the end of the week depending on the amount of subs. I mean, I do too. I effectively give away stuff at the end on Sundays. That's the thing. It's like I give away monthly stuff plus other stuff. Now I can't go too off the board because like CIG does pay for a lot of that. CIG just gives me chips to give away almost every kind of major event, which is thankful. CIG, thank you CIG for it. But as a result, that ends up being added onto the pile of stuff that I want to give away, and I use that for my monthly giveaways to help me like kind of avoid that. So you're allowed to make money, not teaching. We're allowed to make money other ways, just not teaching. All right, let's go through the main topic at hand, which is Pyro. Yeah, like, for those of you who didn't, we'll see when we see the monthly report. It was mentioned in the monthly report that, and I'll pull it out directly so we have I can directly quote it and read it word for word. All right, there's no more ISCs. I forgot about that. Not until 317 or for a month. So, however, significant progress was made to an important features coming later this year, including Pyro and Salvage. Significant progress was made on important features coming later in the year, including Pyro and Salvage. It's very clear. Yeah, squats aren't an April Fool's joke, but by the way. The monthly report was a clickbait ad. I think the problem is that CIG, people say, oh, this is CIG marketing and getting people hype. It's like, no, they've been very clear, but like people don't take this. I don't know how to put this. People are terrible at context clues. And I think the one failure, if there is one failure with a community team with something like this, is just that you have to treat Star Citizen fans like children. And it sounds, bad, but the reality is that if you come in with a mindset that the people you're talking to need to be, that have no object permanence, then it helps a little bit to, they have the like short-term memory of a goldfish, the long-term memory of a goldfish. They just need constant reminders, because the road to Pyro doesn't mean Pyro is coming this year. And that's what this is. This is just more of the road to Pyro, meaning they are working on stuff that's coming out in Pyro. But Pyro doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming out this year. Just because they're planning on having it released this year doesn't mean it will. And they've said that multiple times, but it bears just repeating it every single time, because otherwise people get super hyped or super angry or whatever. Typically, when headline asks questions and the answer is no. It depends. I will, but CIG is not just thinking about Pyro. They're not making vague gestures towards Pyro. The content that they've been working on and they're implementing is genuinely and genuinely concrete steps to getting that in. And before anyone asks, and I'm sure people will ask this, Paul, do you think that they'll add Pyro in even without server meshing? And the answer is no. They won't. Because the amount of stuff it would require for them to add Pyro in without server meshing would be more work than just finishing server meshing. It's a lot more complicated than you think, because everything in Pyro is being built with the concept of server meshing working. It's a bigger system, so it'd have to hold more content. And in this tiny system of Stanton, it's barely able to function. Pyro has more planets. It's 3 times the size of Stanton. Now, granted, a lot of that is empty space, but I think there's like 8 planets in Pyro. There's only 4 in Stanton. So can you imagine doubling the amount of planets? The memory just cannot handle it. So no, the answer is CIG is not going to just release Pyro without server meshing. because Pyro is impossible without server meshing, because that's the only way they'll be able to kind of function with that. Now, again, there probably is more reasons for it, and I'm sure some genius will come up with saying, "Oh, well, technically, you could." Yes, I'm sure there's some possible way to put Pyro in, but the amount of work you'd have to do to make it function would be enormous compared to just getting server meshing done, which is they're already working on, and just taking time to get it completed. But I will say, Pyro does have a shot of coming in this year. I gave it a 50-50, a solid 50-50 shot. What really determines if Pyro can come in or not is if they can get sharding in. And for those of you who are either giggling and or confused, sharding is effectively taking a server and making it its own dedicated universe. That sort of works now, but none of these universes are fully linked to the replication layer. That replication layer has to go between all of the shards and make sure they're all synced together. All the servers sort of work, but they don't all function in terms of persistence, which is why you need sharding, which is effectively full persistence. But for the context of server meshing, full persistence equals turning that server into a shard. And then adding everything to the duplication layer or replication layer to have that added to the overall mesh and everything else like that. So, yeah, that's what matters. If CIG will not be quiet about it. If they can get it done by 318, they'll talk about it. And if they can't get it done by 318, I can almost guarantee you that we won't see Pyro this year. Because without sharding being in the game, you cannot have server meshing. They're intrinsically combined. However, they are working on the replication layer right now, actively. So that's why that's what I'm saying. It's a 50-50. It's really hard to judge right now because the issue isn't can it be done, it's when will it be done. And CIG doesn't have a hard and fast answer for that because they never will, because it's hard to judge new technology. Was there not a leak or an update of possible Pyro this year? It didn't check link yet. No, it's in the monthly report. It's the top of the monthly report. So basically, Pyro will come out when it's ready, but when it's it is okay. So basically, Pyro will come out when it's ready, but it is first priority. Yes, it is the highest priority for the PU team. I'm gonna go back and look at some of the AMAs. We're not children, throw ship. Yeah. No CitizenCon also. Yes, that's true. There is no CitizenCon references. We don't know. We know when it's supposed to happen, but I thought I saw a question. Someone put a question beforehand. My friend says a major focus of Star Citizen gameplay is shitting and waiting with long QT times and planning / prepping for gameplay. Why would CIG make this design choice? Because Star Citizen is a heavily based off of your planning. Anyone who's played an Arma game with large numbers of people will know that like most of Arma is prep. Like a lot of Arma is just setting things up, getting people ready to where they need to go. That's the plan. And the point of that is because Star Citizen is based off of multiple different professions working together. And in order to make those professions function, you need things like time. So in order to have the value of a trucker going from point A to point B, that point B needs to have some sort of higher value at the end of it. So if you have potatoes at point A and you go to sell it at point B, that point B needs to be at higher price. But they also want to make it so that the you can't just go, 2 feet and get a higher price. They want to make it so that the further you go away from that point, the higher the price can be. So the most lucrative trade routes will be long distances away. And in order to simulate long distances, they also have to simulate time. But when you have time, you have to figure out what the fuck you're going to do with it other than just sit and wait. And this isn't Euro Truck Simulator, you can't just fly your ship on manual. There will be some aspects of changing it around, but that's just one aspect. You kind of like expand that from just that point alone. Mining, refining, military operations, everything is going to take time, planning, and preparation. And as a result, there's going to be a lot of shitting and waiting. But it won't just be shitting and waiting. There'll be a lot of maintenance, repair, upkeep, other things that they're going to add to the game as well. It's just right now that part isn't the priority. It's the basic gameplay functionality to get to the shitting and waiting part. Check my colors? What do you mean? My shirt colors are fine, I think. Question, Squadron 42 question. In addition to the Gladius and the Hornet, what do you think the other fighters that will be currently in service by the UE? By that time, the Gladiator? For sure, the Gladiator. In terms of, like, well, I guess it's not a fighter, it's a bomber. The Avenger, the idea that you're learning on an Avenger is, was one of the original pitches. The reason why the original Avenger had 2 seats. It was called the Trainer Avenger. Probably the Saber. We've seen the Saber in Squadron 42 trailers. Probably not the Arrow. The Buccaneer. We've seen the Buccaneer. You fight the Buccaneer. The M50 probably. Yeah. The F8 as well. I'm a little yellowish today. Change that a little bit. Contrast. There we go. And a little bit more pale, I'm sure. I have many hours in Arma and agree, logistics is what makes it fun. Yeah, and the thing about Arma is a good baseline for Star Citizen. Because I think that's more what Star Citizen's going for. And anyone who's played Arma knows it's not realistic. It's just trying to ape realism as much as possible. It's trying to get as authentic as possible without making it boring. But it can take some time. With the release of Pyro, is it possible Spectrum and Reddit get drowned in an ocean created by the tears of Care Bears and Space Dads unable to explore the new system? Yes. 100% Pyro is going to cause a lot of people to claim that they want an offline version for Star Citizen, which personally is not something I hope. But yeah, I've already heard people say that they paid for the game. They want to be able to explore every aspect of the game for their $45,000, $100,000, whatever. Server meshing could come out a patch before Pyro. That's true. They did that with OCS, where they released object container streaming, and then they released Lorville and Hurston like a patch after that. Do I think the Pyro or the cargo refactor will drive the creation of dedicated player load masters to load/unload super effectively? Yes. I think people who are good at loading and unloading will be of high value, or people will learn how to do it real quickly themselves. One of my favorite ever ARMA operations ended with no more than 10 minutes of combat out of 2 hours of the operation. Most of it was recon and planning to get a large coordinated assault that was extremely well and that went extremely well and was very satisfying to pull off. That's the thing, yeah. How clickbaity is that title? We talked about it. Because that's like... It's in the first fucking 2 sentences of the monthly report. And it's already been brought up on Reddit and on my Discord and other places. Question, how long after Pyro do you think they'd be able to raise the amount of players per server? They'll probably do it at the same time as Pyro. Because the issue is not necessarily... they've done more players per server. The issue is memory. Like that's if you listen to CIG talk, memory is the biggest problem they have. They just do not have enough space to run Star Citizen the way they want to. They need more memory. And there are 2 ways to do that. 1, decrease the number of objects that have to be loaded into memory, or 2, make the objects that are in memory more efficient with memory. So it's not as eating. And so they're doing both at the same time. They're trying to reduce the number of objects by doing the mesh. So the mesh will allow for effectively what's being, like when you see the entirety of Stanton, all of the objects in Stanton are being rendered at the same time by the server and by the players. So every time a player goes to like Lorville, then everything in Lorville is being rendered for that player, and that memory has to be stored on that server. And all that memory has to be pulled. And if you have a mesh where that entire server is then shrunk down to the size of just Lorville, you could put a lot more stuff in a server because Lorville doesn't have nearly the same number of entities as the entire server does, the entire Stanton system does. So you could add more entities, which means they can add more things like AI, more players per server, and so on and so forth. So that's part of the process. The other process is to make things more efficient. If they can make things more efficient, which is what the Gen 12 renderer does, or at least helps, there's other parts as well, just, untangling spaghetti code, doing that sort of thing, then eventually you can also do that as well. So they're attacking it from both ends to make sure that they can do it as good as possible. I think that if they get Gen 12 renderer up and running and then maybe even sharding done by the 3.18, we'll probably see the first initial attempts at an increased player cap around then. So. Is CIG going to have persistent hangers? And if so, how will they work? Based off of what I've read, persistent hangers is designed as just hangers that persist. That's all it is. So if you leave your ship in a hangar, your ship will remain in that hangar until it is called to leave, and until you get in and leave, and that ship will remain. It no longer just gets cold. There's a difference between persistent hangers and personal hangers. And persistent hangers is a step towards personal hangers, but not personal hangers. So 318 server meshing and 319 Pyro. Probably, I'd more guess that we have a 319.5 or a 320, which is whatever, 4.0. 319 would be the CitizenCon patch. And while I'd love to see CitizenCon have the CitizenCon patch have Pyro, it probably is more likely like the very, very end of the year. Lol, jump points, you need are you sure you want to jump to Pyro warning? Yes, they do. I'm offline for if it bumps up. I'm for offline if it bumps up. If it bumps put pirate attacks by. Oh, he's saying bumps up pirate attacks by 25%. No, I'm not for offline. Offline killed Elite Dangerous. Like, I just wasn't as excited about Elite Dangerous when they had, that offline mode that people just would have all like flee to the second that shit got tough. And especially since they could just do what they want. I don't think meshing would come out before 319. Definitely, it depends. It really depends. Like I said, it really depends on the persistence. Loader, unloader, like the Argo Raft. Yeah, that's the reason why the Argo Raft is so important, because it's a ship that, yes, it holds about the same amount as a Connie, but it loads and unloads itself. I can't wait to be in the Eclipse by the Pyro Gate just to give people a good old Pyro hello. I think that's one of the reasons why they're really looking at Pyro right now, is because they're trying to figure out if they can make it so that there are multiple entrances and exits. I think they've talked about that, so that people can't just camp the end of the Pyro Gate and just fuck you. Question: who's gonna be more of a space dad, Algrid or Execute? I think Execute. Nah, neither of them are. They're both Australian. I don't know many Australian dads of the space variety. Plenty of Australian daddies, though. People think they want open world PvP until the goons show up. The goons aren't a problem as long as the world isn't run by the goons. People make the goons out to be big bads, but my experience with the Goon Swarm is they're either average to below average players in most games other than EVE. Even in Elite, they weren't very, very powerful. There were other pirate groups which were much more powerful than the Goons, who will make it to Star Citizen. The way that Star Citizen's being built is places like Pyro won't really be paradises for, PvP players, but they'll be more of a place where they can flex their muscle and not have to worry about it. But reputation will always matter. Star Citizen at its core is not EVE. They're not setting out to be EVE. They're not even setting out to be Elite. Star Citizen at its core is setting out to be Star Citizen. It's supposed to be Freelancer 2 on steroids now. It's your reputation in places like Pyro will be your livelihood. Because if you have the wrong reputation, you just cannot go to places without being attacked. That's the long-term goal. What's been the plan since 2019 there, Naz? I'm behind on everything. You don't think they want to get Pyro stable before raising it? No. Hell no. Are you kidding me? Star Citizen stable, they'll throw things at it until it explodes. Like, they released 3A17 on fire. And they fixed it after 2 patches, apparently. Like, the latest patch actually fixed a lot of things, so you can actually test it. But it was on fire. You couldn't even play it. Someone points this out, but Grimhuck's got 60 hospital rooms coming. The hopium for increased player count is high. That's the other point. Yes, so 60 hospital rooms is very important because it's more than the number of players we actually have. So yeah, that's a big one. Memory is the key. Yes, memory seems to be their problem in more ways than one. Yay! I know what you did there, HD. More RAM. We can't, sir. There's no more chips on Earth. Import them from Mars and even more RAM. More trash on the ground, background stuff. Yes, I don't think trash and background stuff is going to be the major point of that, but I think NPCs. NPCs will be the big one. And players. More NPCs doing more NPC things. Excuse me. Phew. There we go. The Banu didn't get in Vanduul's way. That should since they don't occupy planets, hence why the Vanduul have annihilated the one system the Banu colonized. In any case, I think they have a complicated history that we have yet to hear. Yes, there's a lot of interesting histories with the Vanduul for sure. To be fair, an offline mode would be great for RP focus groups like Darkside RP. I agree, Del, but I think that RP servers for Star Citizen will happen after Squadron comes out. And I don't think they should be connected to the wider universe. And I don't think they will be able to, just because of the size problems. Question, do you think the Lorville update will allow docking/landing on the main Lorville building? No, not soon. I think Hurston... the Hurston Business District, the HBD, will be we'll get it more of expansions probably next year. Pyro seems to be the big focus right now. Question, what ships will release around your opinion as Pyro? Around in your opinion as Pyro. Oh, the same time as Pyro? The Band and Merchantman, likely. Anything that's going to be released in 319, 320, or like has trajectory to hit there. But though, like, the Liberator is designed for Pyro. The Anvil Liberator is 100% a Pyro ship, because they've emphasized this enough with refueling that there's not enough infrastructure in Pyro to support ships, really. You need to bring everything with you. It's a lawless system. And this is going to be a reality check for a lot of y'all. Pyro is more like what we'll experience in other systems than Stanton. Stanton is incredibly settled comparatively. You're more likely to end up in a system with one, maybe two gas stations and maybe one landing zone than you are to end up in a system like Stanton, which has like 7 per planet. It's just the infrastructure is falling the fuck apart over most of the UEE. And that's good, because it means players have more of a interaction with one another. The further you get out into the fringe, the more you're going to have to rely on other players and or group together for protection and for safety and for travel. So I wish persistent hangars would be located based on something you have visited every port you visit. I mean, I think the concept of persistent hangars, they've talked about it, was that you could save stuff into a hangar for later. But that's personal hangars, not persistent hangars. So I don't know. When will personal hangars come out? No idea. After persistent hangars. Pyro, it goes to 4.0? Yes. When Pyro releases, they would go to 4.0. I always thought persistent hangars were the same as personal. No, they're not. They've thrown some monkey wrenches in there to kind of separate them. I've read the descriptions in the past, and they're not exactly the same. If they get it done, I think you mean when. It's Montreal, the team that makes crack-powered coding speed to look like a turtle. No, I get it. Montreal is pretty good. The issue is when Montreal does things like Hearson Business District, that's probably not their priority. So they're probably more looking at other things. Evening, Paul. Do you think making 2 games side by side at a much at the expense of taking much longer will ultimately benefit both games? Yes. The way that CIG plans on doing things, I think I don't think it should be attempted by any other team, but I think CIG is uniquely positioned to make this work. For those of you who don't know, most games of the single player variety have to, every single iteration, improve in some way, shape, or form. More guns, more levels, expand the plot, more game mechanics, whatever. And most sequels have to up the ante in some way, shape, or form. So that requires dev teams to develop a lot of resources, sometimes build entirely new engines or work on entirely new engines to try to up the graphical fidelity, everything like that. So here's the problem. In order to do that, you need to invest a lot of material and planning in something you have no idea if it's going to work or not. However, CIG has Star Citizen. So anytime they develop something for Star Citizen, they can slot it into their next single-player game, be it Squadron 42 Part 2 or Part 3, or a spin-off series, because they've talked about doing other things like that, and it will improve the gameplay overall for that game. So anything that's being built for Star Citizen can then end up kind of dovetailing into future releases. So, and on the flip side, the single-player games can do something that Squadron can't, or that Star Citizen can't, which is sell copies. Once you've bought Star Citizen, you're done. You don't have to buy another copy again. But if you buy the single-player game, then you're spending an additional $40, $60 to buy that game. When the next game comes out, Squadron 42 Part 2, you're going to have to spend another $40, $60. So that money goes back into the development of Star Citizen, as well as just keeping the lights on at CIG. So they have a kind of a symbiotic relationship. The single player games keep the money rolling in, and the multiplayer game helps develop the technology and do the R&D for that, and also the testing, so that players can see if they like it or not before it gets rolled into the next iteration of the single player game. It's an Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. As long as it brings in more lore, RP, and character content. Okay. Code eats goons for a snack in Elite. Yeah. Eve is dying. Played it for years. Goons will be looking for a new home. Goons. I don't mean to insult goons, because I know I have friends who've played with Goonswarm and stuff like that. Goons are just like any other. They're like testies or any other group of people who are from one community who want to play. They'll have fun, but they need a specific type of game to thrive if it's going to be like Eve. Star Citizen isn't Eve. Yeah, and if you don't question, do you think that eventually there will be a used ship market for the game? Yeah. Example, a new Avenger Titan for full price, or maybe a used Avenger Titan for less money but with some issues? Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. The reality of Goon's success has always been their ability to organize and coordinate, their political skill, their infrastructure in the background. Yeah. CNN News just reported the forest fires caused by Star Citizen players, PC overheating. Server progress might stagnate. Russia just gave 54% of the world's neon used in layers for making chips. We'll see. I don't think they have to do any hardware for Star Citizen because it's all used through Amazon. Speaking of Vanduul, has UAE successfully held against the Vanduul anywhere? Yes, twice. One is the Battle of Oberon, and the other one's the Battle of Vega. Those are both very recent. And both of them were commanded by Admiral Bishop. That's the topic probably because I talked about how one of the things I'm going to do probably for Alien Week is why the Vanduul are so scary and why you should be afraid of the Vanduul. They're not just big mean baddies in a video game. If you look at how they operate and how they function, they are very, very tactically minded. They are not just berserker rage. They are smart. They fight like an army should. They know how to plan, execute, attack at the right points for weak points. They don't just scream charge and run into the enemy. They wait for the right moment to strike. Will you take the characters from Quantum Stellar and do a limited comic book series of its own lore as time goes on? Yeah, no, there's definitely, if the money goes on, yeah, I'll definitely do. With the characters from Quantum Stellar, I'll definitely do what I can with them. As long as I, don't get sued by CIG. As long as it's legally distinct. I'll probably sell merch and stuff like that with the characters on there. Just not the ships. Fountain Wars 2.0 and Star Citizen will be the most glorious thing in the world. Montoya will die a glorious death. The goons will pad ram all of the non-believers. One thing I think about is server meshing has so much overhead that it may not work on a single PC. Server meshing is not a PC. It works on servers. That's the thing. So for those of you, we're going to talk about this week because we're going to talk with Ray from Ray's Guide and Space Coder. But it's important to remember that server meshing has to do with servers, not PCs. And yes, servers are kind of virtual PCs, but they're built differently. The goal of CIG is that every single server in the mesh will be run by a different processor or different elements of a processor. Their goal is to basically take one processor of a server and have it run, of server blade, and have that run like an entire mesh or thing. They want to make it as efficient as possible for running servers. So don't think about server meshing as a player's perspective. It's a back-end perspective. Pyro's huge too and nowhere near the largest system. No. I had an arrangement with someone who firmly believes Pyro will have a similar infrastructure to Stanton. Whew. Yeah, no, that's gonna be rough. Empty systems also lay the groundwork for the future land games. Yes, that's true. There's definitely going to have those. And there are more empty systems than Pyro. Pyro is much more of a Mad Max planet or system than empty, but they'll have to huge player counts to support that. They'll have to add more gas stops. They don't. That's the thing. They won't. Players will have to be the gas stops. Question: when do you think the fuel refinery gameplay will happen for the freelancer, and whatnot, and what will happen for the freelancer Dur? The Dur is a hydrogen plant. It's no quantum, so it's practically useless unless you want to fly everywhere. And because they basically killed the idea that any refiner can do quantanium. That's not true anymore. So that's pretty much keep it the way it is, whatever. But in terms of refinery gameplay, I don't think we'll see refinery gameplay until after Pyro, probably sometime end of next year. I think Nyx has 2 landing zones, one in Delamar and the other one would be High Orbital Station. No, probably not. It'd probably just have landing zones. Hi, Paul. I see the progress on Rastar is coming along, which is be good for players building up the infrastructure in other systems. Yeah, Rastar is the thing that you use for building on planets, and that's being worked on pretty well too. Yay, the funny thumbnails are back. Hey, Info Runners. Yeah, I gotta do the funny thumbnails. I made this joke on the last Launch Sequence podcast on Space Tomatoes stream, and someone said, Paul, I watch you because you like content, because I like your topics, and it went on this big long tirade, and I wanted to be like, no, you don't understand. The funny thumbnails aren't what gets you to click. The funny thumbnails is why you even saw it in the first place. We look through so much stuff on a regular basis that our eyes just glance off of most of the stuff we see because we have so much information we have to process. But if your eyes see a person, especially if a person is making a exaggerated gesture with, very bright or clashing colors, your brain goes into fight or flight mode, into a threat identification mode. Because why is that person going, and why is there lots of yellow? Those things together do not mix. And so your ape brain be like, danger, what is this? And then you focus on that, and then you read the title and you go, that's interesting. But you don't realize you focused on that. You just said, oh, I saw the title and it was good. But it's like you didn't really. You saw the thumbnail and the title. Sometimes if it's a really good thumbnail, you clicked on it because the thumbnail also has the topic involved. So you go, oh, that's the interesting topic. You didn't even see that without the funny face. So it's a psychology thing. A great way of looking at this is the ape experiment. If anyone knows about like how you kind of phase out things, there's an experiment. You can look it up here. I don't remember. It's a perspective experiment where you're told to watch this video and count how many times the ball is passed between different people. Do it on your own, and you'll see what I mean. In Org conflicts, we'll be able to capture Boreal stalkers and release them in enemy ships with the hopes they safe word the entire crew to death. Yes, Jay. Confirmed. A theory, Paul. Why are the Vanduul and the Banu get along? The Banu make stuff and don't colonize planets. The Vanduul pillage planets for resources. The Banu don't get in the Vanduul's pirate way, as they don't colonize. A symbiotic relationship. The Banu make stuff to trade tech they find resources with Vanduul, resources that they need. Maybe the Vanduul fought the Banu back to one system, and that's why they don't talk history. It's hard to tell. More than likely, it's just that the Banu are really, really nice. They're the nicest beings in the galaxy. Like, you just can't be mad at them. They're just so nice. It's really hard to explain. Like, when you read the lore of the Banu, they're just so happy about everything. It's like I can't be mad at you. Like, I know you're trying to steal my liver, but you're just so fucking charming. The Banu are charming. They're a very charming culture. And like, I'm sure there are some mean Banu out there, but it's like saying like there's an angry puppy, It's like I can't say mad at you. You're just so good. So I'm sure that just shows you how goddamn good of a negotiator the Banu are. Cyber Rodeo started. Sorry, Paul, couldn't catch the rest of the recording. No problem, there, again. Will Pyro come out this year or Q1 2023? It's a good question. I think it's a 50-50 chance of it coming out Q4 of this year. But I think it's much higher chances, like 75-80% chances of it coming out by Q2 of 2023. What really matters is persistence and sharding. So if they can get shards and the what is it called, the replication layer done by next patch, yeah, for sure. I just want my BMM, yeah. Question: How about a bet? If Pyro comes out this year, you fly a Redeemer through the jump point. I'll do that, guarantee it. If I can get a handmade Redeemer. All right, I'm going to go through some of this little stuff. Question: Do you think the rope physics is related to cargo factor, Pyro, or something else? Squadron 42. It's rope puzzles for Squadron 42. That's what they did, the rope physics. They'll probably add something else to it, but... Question: Do you think the Loreville expansion will initially come with changes to how the armistice zones will work to allow for FPS missions? To a degree, I think a lot of it's going to be on... they've talked about this as well with like more more shops. Do the XL1 jump drive don't be a good option in Pyro? Probably not. Quantum planet equals Starfare. Planet equals Starfare. We don't know. It doesn't sound like it. You can definitely carry it, but the cult of the Endeavor. All hail the Endeavor. Yes. Someone's going to name their Starfare Silver Cow. I'm sure they already have. The mommy milker. Eight brains go click click. Yeah. Question: Redeemer, when you said that when server meshing start being introduced, it will break a lot of things. Is that the first implementation of the PTU right now? Ship streaming NPC loads after? No, that's OCS, and that's just different, like streams loading in and out. The server meshing stuff is going to break a lot of translation issues when you go between the mesh. So like if you go from one point to another, as you transition from one server to another, that handoff could go wrong and you could crash yourself to desktop. And I think it's probably going to happen more likely than not, is that when you initially jump from point A to point B, every time you leave a mesh, you'll crash and then come back in, and then you'll be in the new server and stuff like that. Paul, how hopeful are you about the server meshing? We're going to get 1 mega shard with millions of players all connected, or is that just hopium? That's hopium for now. We will probably get 3 mega shards, but that's further down the line. I think we're more likely to get a bunch of tiny shards with mesh, initially, and then a larger shards connected together for the initial server mesh, just to test. And then every patch they'll increase the size of those shards, so it goes from 1,000 players to 2,000 players to 10,000 players. I think their goal, they even said, is to have North American, Australian, and European servers, like shards, individual shards that you can easily pass between back and forth. It's not like a hard and fast like realm in like World of Warcraft or whatever. It's like those realms. It's like that, but if you could just hop your character between the realms at will. It just depends on who you're teamed up with and, where you're going and where you are. I'm sorry. I didn't catch the ad early enough. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. I don't have any mods on the YouTube stuff, so the men who want to trade, they just don't care. With CIG tuning the new asset / shader streaming, does not be the start of the prep for persistence and server meshing? Performance has been quite a jump. Yes, that's part of it. Yeah, for sure. That's part of it. But that's more of a addition to the whole fabric rather than, which is when we say, like, when I say like nothing is like a Lego brick, it's not like a brick you just like attach to it. Everything is hundreds, if not thousands or millions of tiny little systems that are put together that make up something like server meshing or object container streaming. They're all various different aspects, little parts of the whole cloth that have to be woven together to make it sure they really function. I would prefer 3 mega shards. It's also important to remember that even if there's 3 mega shards, it doesn't mean that there are 3 separate like instances. It means that there are 3 instances you can play on, but they're all connected to the same backend. Isn't sharding like car insurance? It works because not everyone will use it at the same time. I don't know. I don't know. Mega shard sounds like a big mechanical robot. Yeah. What is your thoughts on why CIG decided to try this change in client-side streaming? It's probably just them testing it out for 3.17, just to see how it works. You said Star Citizen is going to be kind of like a metaverse, like Oasis from Ready Player One. Right now, CIG's products are ships. Do you see that changing to the future? To what? I think mostly ships. Any new ship is going to be sold first as an actual cash and then eventually to the game itself. I think in the future, CIG will try to sell things like cosmetics and other add-ons. I wouldn't be surprised if they added things like insurance or LTI as part of a paid function, an optional subscriber service. They talked about selling UEC. I don't like it, but it would be a thing. Being able to purchase player slots. Being able to purchase like expansions, like people have talked about a lot since I've talked a little bit about aliens, especially with the Tavaran lore update that happened that I just did a video on. What are the Tavaran? Well, they're an alien race you're going to interact with, but are they playable? CIG has said that they want to do an expansion in the distant future after Star Citizen is launched, which heat death of the universe and all that. That they'll, a paid expansion. If they were going to do a paid expansion, that's what they do, is you being able to play aliens. Because there's some fundamental changes in the lore and how the game plays when you are playing as a Tavaran or a Banu or a Xi'an. You'll never play as a fucking Vanduul, though. It's just not going to happen. God fucking damn it. As cool as one giant shard would be, the laws of physics would make interactions with people on the other side of the world less favorable, yeah. Please explain how the Argo Cargo will be the ultimate meta ship for life in Pyro. Do you want to unload everything by hand, or do you want to use a fucking Argo Cargo? That's why. Don't worry, Paul. I DM'd the cancer pot and Boreal Stalker. Question. Do you think you will be able to find random mining fields in space? If so, do you think they will be perma, or will time go out after a few days, new ones get generated? They've said that they'll eventually regenerate, but they want to have that be a long way. So you can exhaust resources and just walk away and then have it come back. But it'll take a while. I know you said we don't read, so I made it live tonight 4 a.m. Can you read Squashing 42 email for the monthly report for us, please? Luigi, I hate to tell you this. I do that next week. When I don't do it when it goes into the email, I do it when it goes out to everybody. So go back to sleep. I'll read it to you tomorrow, or read it to you next Wednesday. There will also be a video on YouTube. I'll make it separate like I did last time because people liked it. So, when server meshing is finally complete, what will the genius mind of Tony Z do next? Invent non-phallic freelancer? Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I think it's going to be Quanta. He's going to focus heavily on Quanta. The UEC sales I have issues with, but bot UEC should mark You marked an account and cannot have it more than at the same time. Yeah, X amount at the same time. Yeah. And then finally caught up. You can have faster than like quantum travel server sync, but not yet. It'll be like 2 to 5 years. Hey, Star Citizen will still be in development by then. All I gotta say is that I had my lava shard the other day, and it was kind of messy. Well, see, that's why you gotta wait for lava tech to come in before you have those, Trav. That was your point. That's your problem right there. Salvage hype, let's go. God damn. Okay. I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to be very unpopular, and I know Jake is even disagrees with me to a degree, which is I do not expect Salvage to make it in 3.18. Not because I don't think CIG is capable of doing so, just that I think the soft factors that exist around development are something that CIG does not do a good job of taking into account. And soft factors is the thing I've stolen from Laserpig, because he has a great way of explaining why looking at hard stats, the stuff you'd see on a trading card, is great, but it doesn't make any sense in the real world, because the real world has other problems that that do not look at hard stats. And with CIG development, the hard stats are how many developers, how long does it take them to develop, and blah blah blah. When's the tech done? Getting the tech done is good, but there's a difference between tech being done and integrated into the main development branch and tested. And that means you need to have someone who integrates it, and then you have people who test it, QA people who are available to test it. And if those QA people are pulled away to fight fire somewhere else, like, I don't know, Squadron 42, which is the main point, like feature right now, or 317 being on fire, or whatever, the latest patch being on fire, you need those sorts of issues. So without taking those into account, without budgeting in how long it'll take for a QA team to go through and test out and beat the shit out of something, and then obviously find faults, which needs to be sent back and then fixed, and then tested it again, and then beat the shit out of and tested it back and fixed, and so on and so forth. That whole process, that's going to add time, weeks, months of time. And if 318 comes around, like say June, and we're starting to get salvage, like the whole stripping stuff is finished in mid-June, then it's not going to make it, because it needs weeks or months of testing before it can go into Evocati and integrate it into the whole game as well. It doesn't necessarily work like that. So budgeting that in, it's probably one of the reasons why 316 didn't see refueling. Even though we had a lot of work that was done, we saw a lot of work that was done, they still don't even have beacons for refueling. So it's important to always keep those in there. Salvage possibly shifted, let's go. I don't think 318 is going to have salvage, but I don't think that 318, I do think that 319 will have it. I think it's going to, something similar to the whole personal inventory and medical, which was supposed to be in that summer patch and got pushed to the fall patch, and it was great, or the Q3 patch. Question: when Star Citizen finally gets released, will my 3090 and 16 core processor be out of date? Yes. Yes, it will. Do I think the cargo factor will get cargo factor instead, or 318 is likely to be fairly different patch from what we're currently expecting to see? I think cargo factor is getting a lot of look-ins. I think the big thing for 318 is going to be cargo refactor, because that's also attached to persistence. I would be fine of being up to Tavaran or a Banu. Yeah. Would you like to see Refinery Ship's name be changed before it releases the concept instead of the Expanse? All right. I'm going to make some people angry. And Nubifire. I'll make Nubifire angry as well, because I know you did an entire video on this. The name is fine. It's fine. It's okay to have dumb names in the game. The hover quad is called the fucking hover quad. That's dumb. Look at things like the Avenger. We still call it the Avenger, but the community name for the Avenger is the Penguin, because it's the Penguin. Like, does anyone know the actual name of the Warthog, of the A10 Warthog? It's not the A10 Warthog. It's the Thunderbolt 2. But no one fucking calls it the Thunderbolt 2. It's the fucking Warthog. So that's a good example. You can call it whatever the fuck you want when it comes out. I don't think it's a bad name. I would say it's a bad name. I don't care. It's more like it. And I know there's some people who do care, and I get it. It's heckin' valid that you care about the name of a JPEG, but I just don't. Do you think the Star Citizen Live today with the Active Feature team will have a question about stuff from your hygiene? Well, I mean, I asked the question. Those of you who don't know, I asked a question about pooping for the live team. And I got a lot of Picard facepalms in response, but hey, it's something they haven't clarified. And I did it in a way that I thought was respectful and more on point to, is this a planned feature? We have fucking bathrooms in our ships. Is that just for aesthetics? The fucking, toilet pops out. You can fucking, what the fuck is this thing? What is it supposed to be? Are there plans for it? That's the kind of thing, so. Can I just say, Astropub, when we're getting planet-side roads, now they have rivers sooner than later. Probably not until at the earliest the end of this year. The question is, how's the tool going? And if the tool is working pretty well, how does Montreal have that tool? Because if Montreal has that tool within 2 months. At this point, I'm very, very much believe that if Montreal has a tool, they'll build whatever the hell they're building with that tool in 2 months. Because they're fucking efficient at that. Hey, Randy. Soon we'll be able to tranquilize the Boreal stalkers and put them in the elevator. Oh, God. Look, there are dumb names everywhere IRL. Yeah. I don't think the name is dumb. I think the Expanse, is just better name for the exploration ship. Yeah, probably. I agree. They're dumb. You spend some time considering the name change. Could be spent better. It's fine. F-16 is the Fighting Falcon. Pilots tend to call it the Viper. Yeah. Having dumb names in game just increases the immersion. At least it's not named after a snake. That's true. 30 millimeter Bert, yeah. Question, so we know about space dads, but who's our space mom? Someone has to clean up after us. Jake is space mom. He gets a lot of abuse he doesn't deserve. And he's still always there for us when we need him. Jake is obviously space mom. That or Tyler. Tyler may be also space mom. You mean roadmap guy? Yes. For when Star Citizen comes out, should I get a microfusion reactor or for the new robot hamster tech for power? Yes. Either one will work. F-16 is the lawn dart. It's a cool name for boring ship. Balance. Space pooping is important. I need to know if I need a secondary suit, okay? Just in case of torpedo burritos. Technically, the A-10 is named the A-10 Thunderbolt 2, and it did a bad thing and got ignored the MSD naming system. I still like Laserpig's name for it, which is the sharding hippo. It sounds like when it fires its cannon, it sounds like a hippo with diarrhea. Push loop with push gauge, like a mining. What do you think is infringement? Okay, let's go through some of this. Do I think more mainstream gaming content creators are important to bring in the new players, i.e. Level Cap Gaming's new video that came out today? Level Cap is not new. Level Cap's been making Star Citizen content for years. He just does it frequently, similar to Captain or Burke Black and I guess now Jack Frags. They're content creators who play the game, but they just take breaks. Level Cap's a good one for it though. Nubifier knows Level Cap. He was the one who browbeat Level Cap into doing Star Citizen. So if you see Level Cap coming out there, thank Nubifier. There are two fellows who play with Jack Frags who are both Star Citizen fans. They got him into the game. That's the kind of thing. Like, it's players who get their friends who are creators into the game. And I do think it's important, and I think we're going to see all types of creators show up for Star Citizen to help play it. Just there's something for everyone in Star Citizen, which is one of the reasons why it's a cool game. X1 series or Rangers, which would be first? X1, even though I hate it. I'd want my Ranger first. Do want to say that I love watching the development for this game. Some people get salty, it gets pushed back, but I just want to, I just go play other games, come back. That is the most healthy way of looking at it, Cascadian, is that like, if watching this game develop and then seeing it deliver is fantastic. What I love to see is also the cope. Whenever I see something like something gets pushed out that someone said is never going to be possible, Star Citizen can never do it. That is like the new cope is Star Citizen looks ugly. It looks out of date. I'm like, fuck you. Like, it's different for sure. It's not photorealistic, but I have very rarely seen a game as beautiful as Star Citizen, especially with the scale that Star Citizen has. But yeah, it's always fun to see that, to watch the development unfold, especially since you can get the CIG gets live feedback. So sometimes you get changes right away. Will poop fertilizer make a poop economy where you can sell your poop in medical gowns? Yes. I think Jared gets too much hate. Jared gets a lot of hate. He gets a lot more hate than he deserves. Long live Roadmap Guy. Question. With the cancellation of E3 this year, do you still think there would be a in-person event for CitizenCon? That's a good question. I don't know. Lover Laserpig. Laserpig is fantastic. He's a fantastic content creator. I started watching him a while back, and I mentioned him on the stream a couple times. Like, I started watching him 6 months ago. Like right as he was like taken off. But if you like my content and you want something that's like me, an internet historian, but talking about me combined with an internet historian, but talking about like military warfare, he's that kind of guy. He's my brother from another mother. He's a queer alcoholic. Question: if Tony Z is a space uncle and pulled up in a BMM and offered free double dogs, would you hop on board? I'd think about it. Can we get the entire Star Citizen community to brigade? No, bad. No brigading Laserpig, because I don't want to see him rip into the Nova tank and how bad it is. Though, then again, after seeing the fucking everything else in this goddamn real world war shit go as tits up for the Russians as it's been going, like I do want to. I do feel like a lot of people in the Star Citizen community owe the Nova a fucking apology. Watching this game is the best soap opera in gaming. There's always something happening. It can be good or bad, but never boring. That's true. Ollie43, a big YouTuber with, I believe, 3 million followers, just uploaded a video on Star Citizen. Nice. Is it a good video, or is it a Star Citizen's a scam video? Raptor now plays the game every Sunday, over 1 million subs. I heard about them. Him, yeah. Who's hating on Jared? There's a couple people who really hate Jared. I've heard him before. Could this year be a year for the larger community member finds out about Star Citizen exists will finally blow up? Maybe. Especially if Pyro comes out. Laserpig's Korean sex video is great. Korean sex video is great. His video on fucking yachts is amazing. Like, on rich people, his takes on rich people is fucking amazing. Anyone who says Star Citizen looks ugly is denial hard. The game has its issues, but ugly is not one, yeah. Lore question, outside of the synth world, what is the largest space station in the UEE? Looking for something like Citadel for Mass Effect. In the UEE? It's hard to tell. I'd assume probably the fabrication facilities around Seoul, probably around Earth. There's some gigantic facilities built by RSI in the Lagrange points of Earth. I think there's also some big stations built around Terra and Kiel. Whichever system is the home for the UE Navy has massive fucking stations around it. But outside of the UEE, I would say the flotilla, the Banu flotilla, and the and Spider. Spider's a giant space station, huge space station. Whoops! Turns out tanks are dumb. Chevy Nova, yes. The Nova still has anti-air that works. If you had a guess, when do you think after Pyro Nix would you frequently be getting the new star systems? A lot of the back end should be done by then with those two star systems. I think we'd just get it once per probably once per quarter at the very least, if not 2 per quarter. Depends on the frequency of them making stuff and what systems they come out with. Like Cascom and Castra is a different beast entirely from Terra, which is a different beast entirely from Magnus. Those systems are all very different in terms of the amount of effort and other things. They're going to take a lot of time. But like Castra is much easier to make than Magnus, but Magnus is much easier to make than Terra. So it really depends on what systems they're building out. But I think we could easily figure out a system where it's something like one moderate to hard system per patch and one easy system per patch once they get going. But that could probably take a year or two before that happens. Oh, yes, I'm sure he would. He would rip into it. The JPEG of booze is what he'd call us. That's just why that works. When they release this Royal Stalker, they should keep it a surprise and have it scare. I mean, that's what people thought happened because there's that fake video of the of something moving in the woods, which is fake, by the way, y'all. Question: I know you've been you've been on Pyro for a while. Your background, yes. When do you think you're taking a trip outside to leave the system for vacation? When they unlock more? When Magnus comes back? Question: the Retaliator has as a ship to use, not as a bomber main, more transport or other options. Is it worth getting? It's the Retaliator will have the advantage of long range and protection, self-protection. So using it for cargo is probably a good idea. It probably has a lot longer range for any ships that's even near its size. In terms of cargo options, I think it being a longer range transport is probably not as good, but the flexibility of it being either a transport or a missile boat is pretty nice. That's a good kind of jack of all trades, because for like a low price, I'm sure that the modules will cost, less than a Connie, and you could get possibly as close to a Connie level of content out of it. So Star Citizen will never blow up. It'll just keep assembling little at a time like the Borg. Yeah, but I think they'll reach a point where the larger gaming community finds it and likes it. That's a while from now, though. Can you get Raptor on the captain's table, maybe along with Kate? Kate's been on the captain's table, Jordan. Kate's been on the captain's table. What impact will players have on the infrastructure of the UE post-launch? Will we improve it, for instance? Probably to a little bit. I think players will have an impact in terms of events or in terms of the dynamic economy, or will probably help build new stations, which will be updated later. But I don't think we'll be able to build our own stations. And I do think that players building like landing points, like outposts, which maybe have refuel capabilities, may actually service NPCs if CIG does what they think they do, which is madness. I play X4, but I constantly think of Star Citizen when I'm playing it. Same here. I really think that if EgoSoft hires more talent, they could really goes all out. They could make something similar to Star Citizen. The issue with X4 is that it's fantastic, but it's single player. I know they have multiplayer options, but it's just, you need a lot more kind of code. I think if EgoSoft sat down and worked with that and as a base and built a brand new game like X5, they could do it as a multiplayer, but it would require a lot of effort and probably not pay off as well, which makes sense. Another lore question. What UEE political parties are the most friendly to Tavaran citizens? The most friendly is the Transitionalists. The second most friendly is the Universalist. The current Tavaran senator, Suj Kosi, is from the Universalist Party. The Centralists hate aliens. Like, they range from just a little bit, xenophobic to kill all the Xenos. So, question, how many players will die trying to fly through the jump point to get into Pyro? Answer, all of them. Well, I wouldn't even think that fast, but you're a lot deeper in this, so I'm happy to hear that. Okay. Oh, in terms of like the system being built, it really depends on the complexities of the systems and how much of their use in terms of palettes. And I will say this, the team that that's designing, it's being built right now to build these systems is Montreal. And holy fuck, y'all. Like, Montreal works incredibly fast. They're not even fully operational, Magnus, home of Drake Interplanetary, headquarters complete with a strip club hosted on a Caterpillar. Yep. Traditionalists are very progressive. Yeah, I would say they're progressive for American politics. I wouldn't go a lot of the lines and say they're like left-wing socialists in terms of like in-game lore. They're much more central left in terms of their politics. They're like maybe not so much fascism, maybe a little bit more like let's break down the citizen system so we don't force people to try to kill themselves to get the ability to not be poor. But like they're still very much into the like neoliberal capitalism style of that we see with Star Citizen. They tend to favor free trade, just with less racism. It's kind of how they put it. And before I get in trouble again for mentioning those sorts of things, what I'm saying is that on the general spectrum of politics, you have usually 4 compasses for the compass. You've got liberal and conservative, and on the extreme ends of those are like communism and like anarchism, and then fascism for conservative, and anarchism and socialism for more liberals. And then you also have the economic end where you have free versus control, where so you have like control, the ultimate end of control. Conservative is fascism. The ultimate end of free, but in terms of economics, but social liberal is anarchism. The control for control liberalism is communism, and for free but conservative is libertarianism, or ANCAP stuff. So I'm just trying to explain this because someone got really angry last time when I said that like conservative on the fascism on the right with in terms of the conservative spectrum, and socialism on the left in terms of the other way around. Whatever. Anyways, question: behind Addison, who is the second most popular to become imperator? It's hard to tell. I don't remember the votes. There was a voting thing though, and I had to look it up. Andre's doing a great job. Yeah. I don't mean to be political. I was joking. No, I get it. It's just I have to explain myself because people are like really trigger happy when it comes to political issues, and it's like I'm trying to explain in political context of Star Citizen, which is different from our current world. And it differences depend on where you are. So things where in America that might seem more liberal or socialist are much more centralist in places like Europe, where they have a more extreme left than the United States does. Do you think Turbulence Mighty Bridge could be packaged and sold as its own software? Possibly, but I think it's probably its own. It's probably owned by Turbulent, not CIG. Question, do you think we can start an alien character, say Tavaran banner later? Yeah, eventually. Considering the design choices we've seen from the recent ships, how much of a change do you think the Freelancer series will get when it eventually gets brought up to date? Hard to tell. That's so long in the distance. Are capital ships going to be persistent if a player logs off? Yes. Question: if the rumored Drake Mule is really a thing, what do you expect from it visually? A hover loot carrier. I expect it to be a hover sled with maybe 1 to 4 passengers, and it's a place where you can put a bunch of boxes on the back or store a bunch of loot inside of it. Think the hover mule from Serenity. CAG is never going to live down strippers on Caterpillar. DrakeCon was great. That was fantastic. Yeah, that was IAE. Yeah. We know you're good humor. I love you, Paul. God bless from Puerto Rico. Dios bendiga. No worries. I want more anything for you to speak freely. I like to learn. No problem, Sketch. I hope I've heard power is out for y'all in Puerto Rico, so hopefully everything's good. It's the kind of love with no hugging, but I love you. Thank you. Shane Daniel missed. Everyone had their tits out. It was IAE, but yeah. Will we be able to hunt and capture undeveloped sentient species and sell them? There are a couple of them in the universe that are used like for their own, like they have their own uses in alien cultures. Like I think the Osoian hide is used for like an aphrodisiac by the Aegean. So yeah, there'll probably be missions for it. I don't think you'll probably get negative rep with the UEE for breaking the Fair Chance Act, but yeah. Are there any Tavaran-owned companies in the UEE? Nothing that I know of. There's a bunch of Tavaran-owned. I'd imagine there are Tavaran-owned companies, but we don't have any big ones that I know of. How will Quantinium work with cargo refactor? Won't it blow up before you can unload it all? They'll probably just extend the life of it a little bit. So it won't take. It'll have longer time before it blows up. Isn't there a bear-like species that the Xi'an find delicious? I think so. Gemini was started by a Tavaran. Yes, it was co-created by a Tavaran, but as everyone points out to me, that the co-creator of Gemini was a Tavaran in name only. He was raised with his partner, who was the other one who started Gemini, who he was really like a sister to, or like she was a sister to him. Can't remember his name. But the Tavaran was the one who built the weapons, and his adoptive sister, basically, because they both grew up as orphans on the streets, ran the business. And she actually made sure that nobody saw her brother, because she didn't want anyone to know that a Tavaran was the one who was building all these things. But it wasn't so like it's Tavaran in the sense that it was a Tavaran was the co-creator, but not Tavaran in terms of like Tavaran culturally, you know? Damn it, Astropub, your last video got me hyped about the Tavaran. Hey man, this is stuff that comes out like twice a month. All right? Like CIG is really good at this lore stuff. And I feel like a madman screaming into the dark half the time when I talk about lore, because I think I figured out what it is that when you talk about the lore of Star Citizen, it's two parts that people don't realize. Number one, it's complex as hell. It is very hard to follow because you have to jigsaw out all of the parts of the lore together first before you can even start to discuss stuff about it. Like, for instance, there is no direct reference to the cargo crisis of the 29th century. There's some allusions to it. There's some references to it, but there's nothing that says there was a massive cargo crisis in the 29th century. And there's no one who says anything why there was a massive cargo crisis, just that there was effectively not as many ships as they should be. But if you know the context of what happened in the late 28th century, the fall of the Mezzers, and know it caused chaos throughout the UEE, with many people who were close to the Mezzers being put up on war crimes or just straight up killed, it wouldn't be hard to tell that some of those people ran companies that built ships that no longer exist, or stopped offering parts for those companies, for those ships that existed, so that you could effectively no longer use them. So by, 20 years later, when the economy is picking back up, a lot of the trucks effectively that the economy ran on before didn't exist anymore. But you have to piece that together through logic and reading through the lore. You have to it's like a jigsaw, well, you have to do what historians do, which is take small bits of information and merge them together into what makes sense. And I could be wrong, entirely wrong, but nothing that CIG has released, as they continue to release, has done anything but told me that between 2792 and 2840, there was a huge problem, which is why the Hercules exists. It's why the 600i was released as a cargo hauler first. It's why the Caterpillar exists. It's why the hulls exist. All of them were built in the exact same time. Why the fuck are all these cargo ships being built at the exact same time? Why is a luxury manufacturer building a cargo ship? Because they needed fucking cargo ships. Why were they using Idrises as cargo ships in the early 29th century? So, and I think that's the problem when it comes to lore, is that it's really hard, because it's fun for me. It's not fun for your average person who just wants to listen to cool stories. And secondly, all of this shit's on a website. None of this shit's in the game. So if your average player, like, oh, I'm really interested in this universe, like, it's really shallow. If you're just playing the game, there's really nothing there. There's a couple of descriptions here and there, and there's some references made in some of the events, but that's about it. And until that aspect gets brought into the game, it'll always just be kind of meh to most people. And then once it gets put in the game, then they're going to have players start putting it together inside the game, let alone pulling it outside. But that's one of the problems. I'll go back up because I think how big do you think the persistent universe will be in terms of systems and player cap by 2025? First quarter 2025? I would say 8 systems. Probably by that time they probably have all 3 major. I guess by that time you'd have all 3 major shards in North American, Australian, and European server shards. Probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands per those shards. So I think by 2025, you're looking at like a beta-ish release. The question is more about the systems that are not in place, because by that time, Squadron 42 should have been released, and thus the a lot more of the work can gear back towards Star Citizen in terms of like loops, occupation loops, as Todd Sexy Eyes says. What do you think of the announcement about subscriber flare items will be in rare loot boxes in game, with an exclusivity of 3 months after you buy them? Cool. I don't give a shit about these. I don't care about the subscriber gear. I don't subscribe for the subscriber gear. And I don't know why people do. It's just not a good deal. I subscribe for Jump Point. Will pizza come out with server meshing? I fucking hope so, man. I'm sure there'll be going to be special crates for Quantanium, so you can carry them for longer indefinitely, depending on the container. Yeah, I mean, we have that with like the containers that hold like all of those. Those containers for Xenothreat. Something like that, probably. Lower stories. Story missions? Yeah. Like, mission giver missions. You're not screaming in the dark, Paul. We can hear you. Shut the fuck up, Paul. You're being too loud. No, it's just every time you see someone like in a bigger lore community come over to Star Citizen and be like, I just want to like rip my hair out, because it's like, I know you're not looking at the right places. I know you're not paying attention to the right things. And it's not because you're an asshole, it might be, but it's because you just don't know where to look. And it's because CIG doesn't do a very good job of that. And that's because it's just not a priority. Terra, if it's in that much time, I don't expect much. Yeah, I'd say, you know, 5 to 8 systems probably good. For by 2025, if of course depends on a lot of aspects like when server meshing comes in, I'd expect Pyro, Nyx, Castra, Magnus, Stanton, obviously, which is already there, Odin, which is for Squadron by that time, and maybe Terra, and almost certainly Tohill. It's an easier one. It's about 8, 7 to 8. You're not going to see Soul until the very end there. Soul's not going to be put into the very, very end. Question, can we have Citizen Kate on again? Yeah, I can ask. I suffer a jump point, and I like to see if the new ships come out. Yeah. I also don't want people subscribe and, for the Flare and have have it be exclusive to subs. Yeah, it makes sense to have it comes out. Now, the real question for me, is there any lore mentions of someone akin to Banu Sloop? Other than the BMM, no. Have you, or are you going to go through the monthly report? I haven't gone through the monthly report yet, but I don't usually go online. I'll go online because I usually just read the lore stuff on it. Hoping by 2025 we have some endgame anti-vandal stuff, requires an org with heavy equipment. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, 2025 it might as well be, you know, 1,000 years from now. It's so far away now. It's 3 years away now. It's hard to use that as perspective for anything. I'd rather focus on where the game is now and where it can be in a year rather than 5 years or 3 years. So I'm guessing Soul System is 2030. Possibly. And it really depends. Like Star Citizen's, the things that are holding Star Citizen back have a lot more to do with tools and technology. And that tools and technology section is coming to a mid. It's coming to an end of its current run. CIG seems to build a bunch of tools, then stop, use those tools to make a bunch of things, and they run into problems, and they stop, build a bunch more tools, until they reach to the end, and they just constantly do this kind of cycle of over and over and over again. And it feels like they're reaching that last little stage where they're building the last tools they need to push out the next segment of game. And that next segment of game is the foundation of the game. So any other tools will just be additions to the game. And the question, the thing that takes long for any system isn't the system itself. CIG has even said that like 3 people can build a system in a couple of weeks. The issue is landing zones. Luckily, not every place has 4 landing zones like Stanton. Most places have maybe 1, and a lot of places have very simple landing zones. So the question is, do they build out new palettes for every single landing zone? Is every single landing zone unique with unique towers and everything about that? Then yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer for CIG to produce that. If they start reusing assets from other landing zones that they built, it becomes a lot easier because the Castra zone could be a lot faster if they're reusing assets from Microtech or whatever, you know. I like Kate. I agree. I agree. I have her on again since she's come a long way since she's experienced a much more experienced player. Yeah. Question: if I wanted to get started with Star Citizen lore, do you have a recommended video you've done that gives a foundational lore in history? Yes, I have. There's 4. They're each about 10 minutes long. The first one, which is at the very beginning, if you go to the Galactic Historian playlist on YouTube, the very first, an old-fashioned cowboy. The very first video on that is the basic guide to lore. It gives you the absolute breakdown, baby's first lore steps. And then the next 3 on there are all aspects of lore. Like one is the history timeline, one is Stanton, and then one is the factions of the verse. So you can kind of get a little bit more in depth. Why are you here, Bipedal? That's a question I cannot answer. What lore would you want them to expand on? I don't necessarily want them to expand on lore. I want them to add it to the game. The 2 things that they really need to do to make the lore more interesting is NPC conversations and mission givers. Those two things are huge. They're good steps towards the final goal because eventually reputation will help gate a lot of the lore, will help people understand more about the universe, because pissing off the wrong organization by working for another organization is going to require you to know who the fuck those organizations are and why they hate each other. But also events. Like, they've already kind of got events, but I mean, more fleshing out events. Like, we're talking down the line, like procedural events. So an alien invasion of a planet that you have to help defend. That's a lore piece. That's a freaking, like, stopping a Vanduul attack. That's a goddamn event. That's that people will remember. Yeah, more Maria Pure of Heart. I'm going to do a video on Maria Pure of Heart and explain, like, why Maria Pure of Heart is the future of lore. It is what I want to see with lore in terms of atmospheric storytelling, in terms of dynamic event possibilities. Hi, Ash, looking dandy as ever. Motley glow emanating from your being, standing up. Don't get me too excited there, Rock. That hospital's detail as hell. It's not just the detail. It's the plaques, the audio that's being played, like announcers, and some of the hidden details, like there's the portraits towards the VIP area. If you want to learn to hate the Mezzers, just walk through Maria Pure of Heart. You'll learn to hate them by the end. Jump Down is fantastic. More events like that for sure, but I'm curious if the Vanduul are in awe of aware of Operation Pitchfork. I'm sure they are. Yeah. Can't make Maria Pure of Heart with reusable assets. That's true. It's almost comical, this comical dystopian stuff they put in Hearthstone that makes it so delicious for lore. I would argue that it's dystopian if you're politically aware. If you're not politically aware, it just sounds kind of off. If you understand who the Hearthstones are and, like, fundamentally how they view the world, it makes so much sense. Maria Pure of Heart puts a lot of stuff into perspective. But if you don't, it's just a hospital. It's kind of weird. It's got a Catholic aesthetic vibe, but I mean, I'm curious how much more lore will be added once the Loreville cityscape has been reworked. Yeah, it's important to remember the cityscape is not going to be an internal work, as far as I understand. It's just going to be the outside aesthetics of it. You bought beers, but no Gib? Here. More beers. I'm not paying attention to any of that stuff. Did we get rated as well? No. We got a bunch of bits and I didn't see it. And a bunch of resubs that I didn't see. Oh, views are going away. Huh. Hearthstones are much more like the classic robber barons of the Gilded Age. Even their kind of attire screams Roaring 20s. You know, if you look at how they dress, and that's the kind of aesthetic they're trying to go for. The kind of feel they're trying to go for. All right, y'all. I've been streaming for 2 hours. Now let's actually get down to business and look at the monthly report. What's a robber baron? So robber barons were railroad tycoons of the 19th century. Towards the end, they were people who managed to accumulate a lot of wealth through westward expansion and, like, the Reconstruction after Civil War in the United States. And they ended up becoming people like Rockefeller and Carnegie and J.P. Morgan, these major figures who are kind of still affect us today in terms of the amount of wealth they have. They effectively became American nobility through wealth. All right, let's look at this. With Alpha 3.14 approaching fast, many teams spent the month finalizing tasks and implementing the impending release. However, significant progress was made on important features coming later in the year, including Pyro and Salvage. Read on for everything done throughout March. AI content. Last month, the AI contact team... Actually, let me do this real quick. I actually do this right. Hello, and welcome to the March monthly report for 2022. The last report I did on Squadron 42 was fairly well received. Just so you know, probably for watching this after the fact, because I'm recording this now on YouTube, for YouTube after the fact, you'll notice that this is very long. I do not summarize these videos. This is not a YouTube, it's not a Noobifier summary video or Space Tomato. I go through it line by line so you can hear it and read it, hear me talk about it and in full detail, because I feel like to understand a lot of this stuff, you need to read it rather than just hear it summarized so that you can make your own interpretations. I'll put in my own interpretations here and there and kind of acknowledge chat here, but hopefully you enjoy this. As always, like the video, subscribe if you want to see more of this. Comment down below if you would like to see this or your own thoughts on this. It helps a lot with the algorithm. We've had a lot of people coming by and joining the channel recently, so I'm glad to see that. So let's get started. All right. So we'll acknowledge the fact that it says that most of this stuff was done for 3.17 for this month. But significant progress was made on important features coming later this year, including Pyro and Salvage. Read on for everything done throughout March. So it's important to remember that this is not saying that Pyro is coming out this year, but it's still the goal for it to come out this year. AI content. Last month, the AI content team added the final polish to the Drink Vendors feature, which will release with the upcoming Alpha 3.17 patch. Coffee Vendor. The animation polish process began with animation director playing through the feature and uploading a video to ShotGrid. From there, it's annotated with text overlays, painted sketches, and narrated commentary. These points are then actioned by the animator owning the feature to improve the overall visual quality of the delivered product. Okay. Work on the food vendor is coming to an end, with the designers creating tutorial videos and written documentation to help level designer teams implement more food vendors throughout the verse in an upcoming patch. So we're getting more coffee vendors. Hey, I do wonder if that means that we're going to get more active vendors in terms of the ones we have now. So places like hot dog vendors or burrito stands, those places will become a little bit more active possibly. Additionally, the team provided bug fixing support for an upcoming event. For those of you who haven't been following this, that's like the 7th time they've mentioned a hidden upcoming event in the last 3 updates since the beginning of this year. So there's definitely an event coming. If not 3.17, then 3.17.1. Including for the tourist and tour guide AI behaviors released last year. Oh. These behaviors didn't move or speak since they were last used, which, after an initial investigation, turned out to be caused by changes to the animation database. They're taking my job, chat. They're taking my job. Tour guide. The security, vending machine, and arcade machine work mentioned in previous reports progressed well, with final animation polish passes currently underway. This is for security, vending machines, and arcade machines are all for Squadron 42 mostly, but some of it is being for Star Citizen as well. This is all AI doing these sorts of animations. We really look forward to sharing our recent vendor work, so come to Area 18 for a drink when Alpha 317 releases. AI content team. I'm glad they're taking it in stride. Coffee. AI features. Throughout March, AI features worked on quality of life tasks for AI content, including how they author userables and how they work with stances. Which are different character body positions that affect all movement in idle animations. For example, stand, crouch, and prone. Previously, stances were set up for use in specific alignments, in a specific alignment slot, the different options for accessing a usable. Now stances are set up for different uses. For example, the wall panel usable has only one place to enter it, but has differential use slots for upper and lower panels that require the stand and crouch stances, respectively. The team also set up enter and scooch animations that blend correctly from the current stance into usable target stance. This allows them to have a different enter animation for each panel. Okay. So that means that they instead of just slapping to just cutting to a panel if they're working on something, they'll carefully move up to a panel, then interact with the panel in more of a blended way. Having the correct stances set up in usables is also important when a character exits the usable unexpectedly. With this in mind, the team recorded first reaction animations for various stances. Finally, for AI features, functionality was implemented to allow the team to process subsumption events through the audio map, which simulates event propagation as an audio stimuli. It means they can hear you. This is currently used to allow NPCs to alert friendly characters that they've found a dead body. There we go. So you can't see you sneaking around, that kind of stuff. AI Tech began the month addressing feedback on the initial implementation of planetary navigation mesh tech, which was then passed on to several teams for the use in various scenarios. One improvement is the addition of a priority manager to help calculate which areas require navigation mesh regeneration. The position of players, NPCs, and vehicles are currently used to determine where nav mesh is required. To enable the designers to request realistic NPC enforcement on planets via spaceship, as mentioned in February's report, the team began developing functionality to allow NPC pilots to spawn and adjust the dynamic landing and takeoff splines. They also improved the spline creation process for smoother landings and takeoffs, and adjusted the tactical point system queries to work on planets and find the points where the NPCs will move to as they disembark. Simple behaviors were implemented to showcase this new feature too. The development of technology allowing NPCs to correctly push and operate movable entities, like trolleys, continued. CIG, you are giving AI, the ones that keep T-posing and standing on chairs, the ability to push around carts, the things that destroyed servers. We're all gonna die, chat. We're all gonna die. They're absolute men. They're giving the dumb AI atomic bombs. We're all doomed. We're doomed. The team also added further improvements for locomotion and grip posing on trolleys with different layouts and began implementing parking spots for movable objects. Several fixes and improvements were implemented into the subsumption editor tool, including a full graph map of outlier behaviors, a visual grid and a snap functionality, the ability to quick insert nodes at the mouse cursor position, and an easier way to drop connections from a node. AI Tech continued to refactor the NPC movement request system to allow for a more consistent synchronization of states between server and client, and to unify the way NPC movements are processed to reduce inconsistencies. They also created more automated feature tests to improve the stability and bug fixes for Alpha 317. This is AI Tech team, I believe. Yeah. AI vehicle features. The vehicle features team was working alongside AI on behaviors that will benefit both the PU and Squadron 42. The aim is to improve flight behaviors to be more dynamic and closer to how human players behave in combat. They also focused on a ship tactic for fighters taking on capital ships. Interesting. That implies that AIs will be fighting capital ships controlled by players. Very interesting. I'm sure it's also for squadrons, so it's a little different. Animation spent the month focusing on facial animations for numerous shipbound characters. They also worked on the Shubin Interstellar mining tool and finalized the first version of Vendors. Art characters. Character art focused on the frontier outfits for Pyro alongside various Ninetale assets for an event later in the year. Subscriber items and salvage-themed backpacks progressed too. Ooh, salvage-themed backpacks. The team also welcomed new character artists in Montreal, with onboarding and training completed throughout March. Art ships. In the UK, the ship art progressed with a number of vehicles, including the Hull A, which is currently being closed out for its release in Alpha 3.17. The Scorpius cockpit was finalized, including lighting and LODs, while the Banu Merchantman progressed through the exterior R&D phase. The first of 3 unannounced vehicles, Now, it's important to remember when they say unannounced vehicles, generally speaking, unannounced does not mean a vehicle that has been sold previously or announced previously. It means that it's like a concept ship or a ship that's going straight to flyable. So something that we haven't seen ever before. Is now close to being in final art complete. The second is progressing through its gray box stage, while the third is in its initial kickoff and now in early stage of white boxing. There's one that's in final art, one that's in gray box, and one that's in white box. In the US, the team moved the Drake Vulture down the pipeline, which involved creating further art to support mobile repair as part of the repair and salvage gameplay. They also added additional functionality to the pilot's overhead dashboard to support salvage nodes. So the Expanse doesn't count towards those 3? Probably not. Also, having control over weapons of mass destruction, what could possibly go wrong? Or AI, yeah. So obviously, CIG hasn't learned from the UEE's mistakes. They also added additional functionality to the pilot's overhead dashboard to support salvage modes. Significant progress was made on various parts of the Drake Corsair 2. Oh, wait, I skipped something. It was really big. In the US, the team moved the Drake Vulture down the pipeline, which involved creating further art to support mobile repair as part of repair and salvage gameplay. Did CIG just turn the Vulture into a pocket repair ship? This is why you gotta read the fucking monthly reports, y'all. Significant progress. They also added additional functionality to the pilot's overhead dashboard to support salvage modes. It's also not unheard of. They've been talking about salvage in terms of repair back and forth for the last 3 months. Significant progress was made on various parts of the Drake Corsair 2. The co-pilot dashboard was designed and built with an overhang for better visibility, while the co-pilot seat is nearly complete and now features a mechanism that moves it down into its final position. The ship's foyer was finalized. Work on the turret interiors began, and the development kicked off on the crew quarters and engineering room. The team also progressed with the exterior gray box, with work moving from the now completed nose back to it towards its tail. It's all good. The community team started March debriefing the last Xenothreat dynamic event, sharing the infographic of how much work players put into defending the Stanton system. They then kicked off the in-lore St. Patrick's Day equivalent, Stella Fortuna, and its Toast to the Stars contest. In preparation for Alpha 3.17, they pushed 2 Patchwatch comm links featuring details of a lesser-known upcoming features, including the Weapons of Refactor and Quantum. The community also published a step-by-step guide to ship-to-ship refueling, created by Jake, which is pretty cool. Alongside supporting various engagements, work continued on the revamp to the community hub, improvements to the guide system, and other unannounced events. Engine. All right, so I do have to always preface this. I am not an engine seer. I do not know the machine spirits of CIG. I am not an engineer. I'm not much of a coder. I do not understand everything that CIG says in the engine. I will just make sure you say that. So I will understand some of the words. Chat may translate for me, and if you want to translate yourself in the comments below, please do. In March, the physics team added a new soft body deformation approach for character cloth. They also implemented island-wide broad phase collision detection to reduce the number of external parts of entities to check against. The steering of vehicles' rear wheels at high speeds was reduced too. So the first part to understand is that soft body deformation, as far as I understand, is the thing that allows you to punch holes in ships. And for it, like if you punched a hole into a ship, the ship would blow out on the inside. That's soft body deformation. To character cloth, does that mean we're going to get like bullet holes in our clothing? Or is this just like the way it drapes? Hard to tell. I don't know what this island-wide broad-face collision detection. This is something they've talked about before, which is they want to reduce the number of external parts to check against. They're trying to make whenever a ship runs into something or a vehicle runs into something, they want to reduce the amount of memory that's being checked. They can reduce, just like say this panel, rather than each rivet on this panel is being touched by this asteroid. And the steering of the rear wheels at high speeds was also reduced too, so you don't overcareer or overstep, steer, that kind of thing. For physical damage, initial changes were submitted for tracking of breakable clusters. Furthermore, an action was added to move a spaceship entity to a specific state in a set amount of time. Lastly, a prototype using a batch workers to step physics to improve thread wake-ups and concurrency was implemented. That's very interesting, because it sounds like they're talking about damage to ships, but I don't know. So that's something I'm going to have to figure that out. On the renderer, the transition to Gen 12 continued. For example, the handling of decals in RTT phases was refactored. And the various bugs caused by enabling of brush rendering via Gen 12 were fixed. Planet terrain rendering was optimized, and support for the sunlight renderer node was added. Various APIs were improved to make them more consistent, efficient, and less verbose to use. The team also started refining the constant correctness of APIs when dealing with returned weak pointers. The Shadow Mask stage was also refactored to use transient constant buffers and remove reflected constants and binding constants via an explicit layout and buffer instead. That's a lot of words that I kind of understand. Effectively, they're improving Gen 12 as they go through. And the RTT is getting better passes, so. Planet terrain, height maps, and planet terrain shadows are now fully ported. Tessellation code for rendering planet terrain patches into height maps was improved for more consistent triangle density. Meanwhile, a bug in the processing of scattering queries for clouds was revealed to be an application issue and fixed. It was previously worked around. That's just improving clouds and improving the planetary tech overall, making it look better and more detailed. On the core engine side, more code was cleaned up using include what you use. Additionally, more time was spent on integrating EASTL. Various optimizations were made, including updates to animated lights, more system updates to the main camera, and flagging of viz areas reflected by the sun were moved into parallel jobs to reduce runtime cost of the main thread. Lastly, global locks were replaced with per-instance locks for fuzzy entity access. That last part's interesting. I do wonder if locks means something different in engine, or if that means locks as in locks on ships. It's a question about that one. It looks like it's mostly just tune-ups, making things cheaper and easier. Support was also given to Alpha 317. The features. All right, so that's I always have to do that what is it called? A disclaimer before the engine stuff, because I am by no means an expert when it comes to engine stuff. Eastil, is that a reference to something? I have no idea. The vehicle technical team completed their transition to the Arena Commander feature team. As part of the move, they reviewed the backlog of Arena Commander bugs to determine their immediate priorities. The radar and scanning is also nearing completion. Door and control panel implementation tool improvements are also underway, paving the ways for easier and more reliable interaction in vehicles and in space stations. That's interesting. So the vehicle technical team is now the Arena Commander team. Good to know. That may also mean that the, what are they called? Fire Sprite is no longer working for CIG. That may be the case there, because if they have a team that's working specifically on Arena Commander, they used to have that as Fire Sprite, and they are no longer available. So, who knows? Features, weapons, characters, and weapons. In March, the team improved various features based on feedback from testing Alpha 317 in the PTU, including making the inventory more robust. They also worked on issues with the initial spawning flow that caused players to spawn without a body. Corpse spawning logic was also improved to ensure quitting out early does not break the flow and make the flow less likely to time out or fail to spawn the corpse entity itself. The features team also revisited grenade throwing, as it was reported to be highly unreliable. That is the most diplomatic way of saying completely and utterly fucked I have ever heard in my life. Good job, CIG. Unreliable. There's that gif of someone throwing a grenade and then like looking down and seeing the grenade in their hands and be like, oh God, like that. That's Fire Strike still in the progress tracker. Okay, who knows? They could be that their contract, they're waiting for their contract to end up, but it's very weird that they have a team moving over to Arena Commander while they had Fire Sprite, which was ostensibly designed to build Arena Commander stuff. So it could be. Oh, it could also be that they're moving exclusively to Theaters of War. So we'll see. Grenades should now be significantly less likely to explode in the hands or at the feet of the player throwing them. They should now no longer rubber band back to the hand after being thrown and always visibly explode on local client too. A large number of bug fixes were done, for example, ensuring a certain hairstyles don't clip through helmets. And dropping a carried helmet will no longer cause the player to suffocate. A fault causing some vendor interaction menus and weapon customization UIs to appear offset was rectified too. That's good. Features, gameplay. The PU team worked through some user feedback and bug fixes for the upcoming release of Refueling. Progress was also made on the HUD UI for Salvage, which is currently going through the iteration process. So that's the point. Like when I mentioned in the past that I don't know if Salvage is going to really make it in 3.18. This is a part that makes it go, it might actually make it, because this is a separate part of Salvage that we don't really think about. Having Salvage work and having Salvage HUD that works are two different things from two different teams. So it's important that they're all working at the same time. So it's a good sign. For engineering gameplay, an example scene was created featuring a village with a battery, power supply unit, and lamppost. The goal was to give an easy introduction to other teams to help them begin utilizing a systematic approach to resources. Life support progressed well, with life support generator now able to remove the atmosphere from a room and convert CO2 into O2. So this is the lamp in the battery. Okay, so this is the thing that they were talking about a while ago, where if you have a power supply unit that's off, like a power generator that's off, you need to have a battery to turn on the power supply unit in order to get it started up from a cold start in order to turn on to then charge the battery, and then the battery then charges the power source, like the light or whatever. So I guess that's the kind of the resource. That's engineering gameplay. What this is. That's what they were talking about with this. This is engineering gameplay and life support gameplay with also some salvage. So that's good. Mission features continue to support. By the way, you'll see this on ISC. I can almost guarantee you this will end up on ISC at some point in the next round of ISCs. Mission features continue to provide game code support and bug fixes for the new selling UI screens. They also fixed various issues with law and hostility alongside general bugs for the upcoming Alpha 3.17 release. Features vehicles. Last month, the vehicle feature team worked on refueling, including integrating the docking systems and rebalancing vehicle fuel efficiency and scooping. They also rebalanced and retuned distortion, so it's more about negatively affecting a ship rather than outright disabling it. We're still working on this feature, which is planned for a release in Alpha 3.17. However, we're hoping you can give feedback on this and help us improve the balance. Vehicle feature team. They also progressed with a lot of upcoming ship releases, particularly the Misk Hull A and RSI Scorpius, which both use new animation and ship state tech. Okay. On the Hull A, this new tech is used on the extending cargo arms and how they integrate with the cargo system. For the Scorpius, it allows the turret to move along its rail. Okay. The AI flight behavior team further developed alongside with the AI team, which will benefit both PU and Squadron 42. When complete, AI behavior will be more dynamic and closer to how human players would behave in combat. Finally, the team began a deep investigation into net sync issues currently being experienced in the PU. They made some great improvements and are currently being tested in Alpha 3.17 builds at the moment. The desync issues. That's cool. The vehicle features team and the gameplay, like these teams, these feature teams, are some of the most important teams. They're the ones that you're going to actually see stuff being come out. They're the downstream teams, but you'll see them come out for those sorts of things. Graphics, VFX programming. Last month, the graphics team focused on fixing bugs for Alpha 3.17 and game dev stability. For example, adding fixes for water volumes not rendering, solving issues with exporting light links, and cleaning up RTT. There are also updates to various shaders with submits for per material AutoC buffer layout and minor improvements for booleans as shader parameters. I understand some of those words. For the ongoing Gen 12 transition, the team fixed various bugs from integration into Alpha 3.17 stream, such as shadow flickering, LOD ratio issues caused by porting of skinned meshes, and multiple crash fixes. The team continued with Gen 12 scaleform porting, making modifications to the execution order and interface to match the current behavior of RTTM. Work also began on moving scattering query analytical shadows to Gen 12. So a lot of Gen 12 work. And render detection work. For Vulkan, minor changes were made to decipher indexing for internal bugs, while fixes were made to crash relating to headless client metric, gathering and warning updates for render doc. Okay. Lighting. Throughout March, the lighting team focused on an upcoming event. Second mention of an upcoming event, well, possibly even third for this one, with a split between supporting new mission locations and sanity checking existing spaces. A full lighting pass was done for key exterior location 2. Oh, it's GG. Thank you, CIG. GG. This is my theory, and based off of the leaks, it kind of holds through, which is Die Hard situation. An area in probably Orison that is under like a group holds the hostage, gets held hostage in an office, and you have to go in and clear them out. So, Boolean equals true/false. Okay, good to know that. Thank you, Parky. Last month, the EU, the locations team worked on a variety of different areas, all of which are in previous stages of completion, from early pre-production to nearing completion. This is another, if you look at the actual image, it actually says, like the title of the image is, there's a new place for Orison. So, work continued towards final on the colonialism outpost, with more variants and modules being completed, in conjunction with a new Rastar tool gaining a wider feature set. The team began dedicated playtesting in the lead up to a wider distribution across the system they'll first be seen in. If you don't remember Rastar is the system that they are eventually going to be turning into player building habitation areas. So that tool is being developed and it's being tested heavily on the colonialism updates, which is specifically for Pyro. So, and here's some more pictures of, looks like a greenhouse in Pyro, possibly. Very early pre-production began on some interesting space-based locations, which won't be seen for a while, but are already getting design and art's creative juices flowing. The next iteration of the underground facility progressed through Whitebox, thank God, with layouts being tested to ensure good gameplay and flow. An update to caves is also in Whitebox, with a focus on improving the readability and traversability alongside the visual facelift. That's all good. And here's a crashed reclaimer, which we know is, I think, in 3.17, or at least in patches shortly after. Whitebox work also continued for the rundown space station variants, which are planned for Pyro's initial release. The wider team supported hardening and bug fixing for Alpha 3.17.2. All right, here comes the Montreal team. Well, that was random. Open Bud's Growery to get some booze. Dead dude in the airlock. Thanks for the armor and backpack, you poor bastard. Hey, Defects. Don't look a gift corpse in the mouth. In Montreal, the Sandbox team iterated on the reclaimer-based derelict settlement. On the art side, they tweaked the silhouette of a crashed site, the crash site, and continued progressing towards the final phase. They also continued onboarding the mission system, and now have 3 fully functional missions in the settlement. They'll be able to iterate further when planetary nav mesh becomes available for wider development. Did Montreal just tell us they built 3 entire mission sets for a crashed reclaimer? Dude, what do you put in the water, Montreal? Canadians, what is it the French? Is it just like y'all created some sort of crazy hybrid of like the most efficient people in the universe and put them in Montreal? Like what's going on? Yeah. The derelict 600i and Crusader Mercury derelicts mentioned in last month's report are progressing smoothly. Also can see them on Sandy's Twitter if you want to go there, because they also mentioned that. They also showed that off. Last month, the team completed the initial versions of the crashed ships and currently looking into the pipeline to make them salvageable. Part of the team began creating space-based missions inside a reclaimer with a basic flow and mission logic implemented and working properly. This is part of the team's onboarding to mission system, with the objective to start by reusing existing modules. Once they're more comfortable with the systems, they'll create variations of the existing missions. We noticed that Grimhex Hospital could get quite busy, especially during Jumptown event. To fix this issue, we significantly expanded its size and used to be only have 3 medical rooms available. With this update, we'll have over 60. This way, all players will be able to respawn and get back in the action as quickly as possible. Sandbox team. Okay. I can't not look at that and go, why are there 60 and not 50? And over 60? Are you increasing the player count in like 318 CIG? Is that what you're telling us? Who knows? Finally, the team officially started the Loreville Cityscape update. The concepting phase is done. And the layout was blocked out. When complete, the scale of Lorville will be dramatically increased and allow for more space for building interiors. Narrative, my favorite portion. There's a lot of cool stuff in this update, y'all. I don't know if you've gathered from just me talking. This is one of the reasons why I always emphasize for people who are upset about the game and progression to read the updates, because there's a lot of stuff that does eventually filter into future updates that if you read these monthly reports, like I knew about the salvage beam stuff like weeks before everyone saw it and lost their mind about it because I read the updates. It was in these updates. And I guarantee you when they announced that the vulture can now also repair in a pinch, it'll be in a future ISC, and people are like, oh, that's so cool. It's like, yeah, but if you read the monthly reports, you would have known this already. All right. Throughout March, Narrative continued to support design and implement an upcoming event scenario, providing mission text and written content to further sell the story. Third mention of a new future mission event. The team went through the editorial process on one of the new missions NPCs captured during last month's mocap session and submitted the data for processing. Once the assets marked their way through the animation and audio teams, Narrative will test the mission with final dialogue. Once complete, they'll record alternative versions of the script to add variety. Looking forward, Narrative began building out some of the shops and franchises that players will visit in the future. Working from a list devised by design, the initial goal was to outline the various services and items currently provided by stores and build a list to ensure coverage and variety moving forward. Once the types and numbers were decided, the team began brainstorming names and brief descriptions to help sell the flavor of the stories and intended shopping experience. So that might mean future shops, more shops being made, possibly even varieties of shops increasing and landing zones. Who knows? I said a lot. I mean, it's hard to. I'm asking these questions or putting it out there because that's what it sounds like to me. Narrative continued to work alongside AI on a system designed to breathe a new level of life into the universe. Several members of the team answered community questions in an episode of Star Citizen Live. On the RSI website, the team posted a portfolio of the armor manufacturer Tehachapi, published a new episode of The Showdown that debated the hotly contested issue of AI development, and shared a new Aramis Post article about the Devarans' attempt to find a new home for their family, which we just did a video on. We actually did a video on The Showdown and the Aramis Post already. We haven't done the profile on the Tehachapi yet. The month was capped off with another update to the Galactipedia. Props. Props spent March finalizing requested assets for an upcoming event. Fourth mention of an event. They also worked on several unannounced items for the community that are coming along as well. Significant work, pizza. Pizza. Don't let me down, Props. Significant work was also done for Pyro, specifically on the vendor shop signs, trash, and some special extras. God damn it, chat. QA's primary publishing focus was delivering Alpha 317 on Evocati. Live QA shadowed this process, running their own feature and LTP testing. Live QA also took a look at more publishing tasks as needed and focused on future QA-TRs for an upcoming in-game events. Development-wise, the QA team handed off the process between Dev QA and Live QA, gated Alpha 317 before Evocati, and verified fixes and stability issues. They then began publishing to Evocati and continued to support publishing. Testing also continued on must-fix issues and in-game spaces for an upcoming event. Fifth mention of an upcoming event. New testers were also onboarded and trained, while new processes between publishing and development were created. The technical animation team spent a month iterating on their rework of internal DNA system. This update will allow for them to expand the gene pool used to create believable heads in-game and ultimately offer more variety for players. It's been a lengthy initiative, but is finally coming to a close with a heavy round of testing and bug fixing to make sure it's the integration into the game. Alongside this, they revisited several head assets requiring updates and, in some cases, a complete overhaul. The ongoing head scanning initiative is currently supplying the team with new archetypes that are being extracted and turned into full game-ready facial rigs. Tech Animation also maintained the existing animation pipeline alongside spearheading initiatives for to supersede older technology to expedite in-house workflows. Tools Montreal. Following up from last month's report, the Tools team completed the integration of Mighty Bridge into the editor and the inclusion of Houdini to Mighty Bridge. This makes Houdini-based tools accessible to everyone inside the company, both on the PU and Squadron 42. On the code side, the team are adding Houdini-related functionality to Mighty Bridge, including the ability to utilize terrain geometry. On the technical art side, two major areas of development progressed. The first is in the procedural location tool, which will speed up the production of certain locations. The team are currently designing the tool's template system to allow the designers and artists to procedurally generate various locations such as derelicts, outposts, and settlement caves and underground facilities. Give me a moment. Someone's flashing. Second area is biome integration, which involves a collection of tools to help the art teams better integrate locations into a planet's specific biome. The first case study uses the derelict reclaimer settlements. Tools are taking the art team's handcrafted proof of concept and automating some of the processes to make creating more easier. For example, one tool automatically places vines and dirt around a crashed spaceship, which is usually a time-consuming task. Nice. So that's one of the reasons we were talking about this earlier, about how it takes a long time for them to produce landing zones. That's the biggest issue. They've got everything else down to pretty good. But this is an example of them building tools to automate that process, be it crash sites, settlements, so on and so forth. So that sounds like that's what they're doing, is they're building these tools which will eventually, in the distant future, once server meshing is out and multiple systems are out, that they can just press a button and get a viable option that they can then go in and tweak and fix a little bit for a landing zone or for a settlement. So, Turbulent Services. In March, Turbulent's online services team delivered the Reputation service, which passed QATR with 0 reported bugs so far. They also completed the majority of work with a Logflow refactor project, including the rental service, putting together the main login loop, entitlement service, and login service. The Live Tools team rolled out improvements to the local dev environment system, now using the new Hex modular UI on the PTU, and are starting to leverage the templating system to quickly add new tools in the Network Operations Center. The team began drafting new modules to enable the developers, player support, and QA to monitor and troubleshoot login issues users might encounter. Turbulent Web Platform. The web team in Montreal began adding new web features for upcoming events, ensuring all components are refurbished or reusable and of the highest possible quality. Turbulent Architecture and e-commerce team added several tools, including a new flow to make redeeming promotion codes easier. 2 CI pipeline flows were further developed for increased performance and reduced wait time on builds. The Turbulent and internal community teams progressed with the rework of Community Hub. The home and discover pages are ready for launch, while progress was made on the post-cert creation and flow tools. UI. Through March, UI continued with 2 long-term projects that will benefit both the PU and Squadron 42, the Visor Refactor and the new radar and maps. The Visor Refactor involves updating the visor and lens so that they work in building blocks, which will make it perform better and easier to work with. Last month's work focused on weapons, actor status display, and law-related elements. Please God, get rid of that, 5-star stuff. For radar and maps, the team focused on ballistics of the basics of full screen version of the radar and added the ability to zoom in on contacts and see their 3D models. I think this is for ships, not necessarily for the FPS radar, but it may be the same. On the tech side, support was given and bugs were fixed for radar and maps alongside for Alpha 317. The team also updated the mouse cursor to run in hardware, which makes it more responsive and allows it to change between different elements such as sliders and 3D controls. This last one. March saw the team complete the VFX production pass for the Miss Call A alongside pre-production passes for the RSI Scorpius and an as yet unannounced vehicle. Progress was also made on salvage effects, with the team adding more refinement to the visuals, including hull scraping and repair effects. They also worked on refueling effects, which were completed to a functional standard for the feature's initial release. They will be improved upon at a later date. Finally, UI provided bug fixing and cleanup support for Alpha 317. And that is the monthly report for March of 2022. There's a lot of stuff in here, which just stands out for me is the several mentions of a new event, which we know are probably coming, possibly with 317, 317.1. Lots of mentions. Obviously, the big mention of the Vulture becoming a repair ship, as well as a salvage ship, which is pretty cool. Mentions of the procedural tools team for perhaps making settlements and landing zones more procedurally. Especially with the creation of the Mighty Bridge system. Let's see what else was up here. The narrative team, obviously, always good at that. The 60-person Grimhex. It's interesting additions there. A lot of this is in Montreal, too, which is why Montreal team. Whew, man, the Montreal team. As well as Gen 12 transitions, render to texture stuff, the further development of the engineering stuff, the life support, all of that stuff. Fantastic content which is being worked on. The Arena Commander team being formed, so more stuff for Arena Commander. I'm just kind of scrolling up through most of this stuff. And AI stuff. A lot of AI stuff, including AI's landing on planets, AI traversing on planets, new missions being brought in for AI to interact with people. Tons of more new stuff being added into the game, as well as possibly future vendors for food coming out soon. So that's it for this video. If you like this, if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, if you like this, please do make sure that you, like, subscribe if you want more content like this. And always comment down below if you would like me to do this sort of thing. It's pretty simple for me to do it because I'm already streaming live. I do this on my office hours every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, where I just sit down and do this live stream, live Q&A, talk about stuff. But once a month, well, twice a month, we do this and also the Squadron 42, which should be out next week as well. So thank you again for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. And remember, Ex Historia and Astra. I'm not leaving yet. That was just me ending up the recording.
Weapons free, y'all.
Subflare items becoming part of the loot pool is amazing. Yeah. So I didn't... oh, thank fuck website improvements now when we're getting Matrix that tells the CIG the truth. Never. They're never going to improve the Matrix of lies. By the way, unrelated, Musk said there's an event today that Optimus version 1 was going to be out next year. What? Lorville update, more interiors. What's coming to Lorville requires more interior space. Offices. Which is like for delivery, but also for missions. Yeah, 60, but you don't get a proper med bed. They just stuck you in a chair and stabbed you with a clean looking med pen. That's Grimhex, baby. They put a crash hammerhead in the water, did they, Merrick? I didn't know that. Poutine on Menage de Poutine. That's poutine. Okay, poutine is what we just need to get poutine to the rest of the team. No, I mean, I'm gonna end up here, shoulder. Like, so Optimus is Cybertruck. I don't know. We're gonna be ending. Well, I'll be ending the stream shortly because it's been 3 fucking hours. Oh, it's a Tesla AI robot. Okay. Grimhex is by far the ugliest and most convenient hospital. I'm with you, Fishbait. I want more NPCs than hospitals or than planets. But we're getting NPCs flying around planets and flying in space, which is cool. Not really. Office interiors and ArcCorp will be possible. You just need to only access it from the top of the roofs, which you can already do right now. How would you say the other companies in Stanton compare to Hurston in terms of how they treat their workers? You want to say that Crusader and the others are kind of Big Brother. They're all various degrees of shit. Hurston's a lot more open about it. ArcCorp is probably as bad, if not a little worse, but you just don't see it as often. And then Crusader is a lot more, we're a family here at Crusader. And Microtech is very much, don't go home. We have all your toys you want at work. Very tech, like very tech heavy. Let me turn on the AC because my camera's overheating. Because I got no ventilation in here. My voice is dying, so I should probably wrap this up shortly. Since you've already explored Maria Pure of Heart, considering they've added 60 plus beds to the clinic, does that make Grimhex the largest medical service in the system? No. Almost all the medics, almost all of the hospitals have like 10 beds per floor, and they have like 8 floors. Like all the hospitals have a lot of beds, but it's weird that they're adding specifically over 60 to Grimhex, which is more of a clinic, I guess, but I didn't actually, until you asked that question, I had forgotten that most of the hospitals have huge numbers, so. Why do you not keep the AC on the whole time? We can't hear it anyways. Well, no, that's not the issue. The issue is that it gets hot over time, and I forget sometimes if the AC is set down to lower temperatures, because if I set the AC below 70, in the rest of the house, it gets to where it's supposed to be, 68, 69 degrees, whatever it is. But in my office, if I set it down to 69, it'll be like 70 or 73 because there's no ventilation in here. So my wife will have to freeze her ass off while I'm staying mostly comfy. So Microtech is a bit like Wizards of the Coast. Nerf in the office? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm not very sweaty. I'll sweat every so often, but it's more of a this room again doesn't get a lot of AC ventilation. Well, you got to understand that where I live in America, if I didn't have AC, I'd probably be dead. Because Texas can get, in terms of Fahrenheit, over 40 degrees, or in terms of Celsius, almost over 40 degrees Celsius. Like routinely in the summers, plus 100% humidity. So if you don't have at least a dehumidifier, you're going to roast to death. So, and ACs are mostly also that. So, and that's, so it's legitimately a medical concern. Like if you're in an apartment here in Austin and your AC breaks down, it is a emergency that your apartment has to fix it, because if you get injured or get overheated and you have to go to the hospital, you can sue them for not, because it's like emergency services. It's like AC is almost as important as water is in Texas. It's more important than internet. And it's also like 50% of our energy costs, which is why having insulated houses that are, properly enclosed so you don't have to run the AC all the time is always a good important. So lost in Australian. Yeah. Austin rules, by the way. I used to live in the Domain back in the day. Yeah, I used to live in the Domain. I don't live there anymore, but yeah, my ex wants to move from Seattle to Texas. I told her, really? You sure about that? The price is a lot better here. I'll tell you that. There's no way I could have afforded a house in California. I might have been afforded a house in Tennessee, but I don't want to live in Tennessee. Texas is the only place where I'm like, I can afford to live here and I don't mind living here. Paul, can you look at my question, please? Sure. Which one was it? I asked a question before I left. I was asking if it could be possible to move between systems without a gate. No. If you have a proper ships, like refuel ships and such. No, you need to have, so there are two, not all jump points have gates built into them. Some jump points are just jump points. And those jump points are more likely, I put that. Those jump points without gates are going to be more difficult to traverse. But if you're asking, like, could you jump without a jump gate? Yes. But you still have to, either way, I think you still have to use quantum. We don't know the quantum fuel. I like that quote. Phil Sheridan, who was the military governor of Texas shortly after the end of the Civil War, said, "If I had to choose between hell and Texas, I'd rent out Texas and live in hell." I miss when Austin wasn't facing skyrocketing costs. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky to buy when I did. I'll just say that. But even then, like the most expensive houses in Austin are still pale in comparison to the cost of living in places like Seattle. Any hope for the return of the squats in 40K? Yes, the squats are coming back. They're called the League of Votan now. I'm gonna buy that army box when it comes out for sure. My voice is dying. I would live in Tennessee, but I don't like being far away from my family. Yeah, I lived in Murfreesboro and Chattanooga and Knoxville when I lived in Tennessee. The problem I have with Tennessee is that there's just not a lot to do in a lot of those places. Like Knoxville, I lived there the longest. Well, I guess Chattanooga I lived the longest. But neither of those places are very people friendly. There are places to live, but there's not a lot to do. Yeah, I haven't had any water for a couple hours. I miss Boston's water emergencies, boiling water alerts every year in these days. Fucking shit. Hey, Paul, is it okay for us to share? Yeah, feel free, Fizzle. If you want to share the sketch for Reclaimer, Fizzle is the one who's working on a lot of the quantum stellar ship waifu stuff. Feel free. Except the Williamson part, Travis rules. Kids nowadays in their AC. Yeah. A jump point is technically a wormhole. A gate is built to structure at a wormhole. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go hydrate, but I'm going to call it a night because it has been 3 hours. And I'm sure someone in the comments for this video later down the line is going to be like, this is longer than Infinity War, Paul. Give me some timestamps. And I will, but you're not going to like it because it's going to be random. It's going to be the main topics and just discussion. What the fuck? Water alerts from tap water? Yeah. Because our water system sucks ass in Austin. And there's always, once a year, something always goes wrong. Either there's a major overspillage of water or someone fucks up something, and they effectively have like, hey, some bad bacteria may have gotten into the drinking water, boil your water. That's effectively what they are. Anywho, I'll be back tomorrow for some 317 PTU action, playing on Friday. It'll probably be a fairly short stream, but we'll be starting around the same time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, which is about 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be doing it for about 2 to 3 hours. We'll probably go solo or maybe hang out with a couple other people who have PTU access. Try to show off some of the stuff that can be possible. Then Saturday, we've got a very special stream with Ray from Ray's Guide and Space Coder, and we're going to be talking about technical aspects of Star Citizen, specifically server meshing, like things like, is server meshing possible this year? How is CIG approaching server meshing, which is unique or novel, or is it even possible at all? What are some of the things they needed to accomplish? How can CIG, those sorts of questions, because a lot of people have been talking to me about Ray and his own technical background, so it's gonna be great to kind of ask those questions and feel from experts in those fields. So, anywho, thank you again. I will see you tomorrow, and like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. There you go.